WBF Rochester, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Justin Fields supposedly unfollowing the Bears on Instagram was a giant...
Oh, who cares?
Patriots special teamer Matthew Slater announced his retirement.
Mike Danger.
Welcome to the Sports Bar. Jennifer Coolidge cut the...
Gene Battaglia.
Talking some Sabres hockey.
Luukkonen got it, but not enough, and Terry has put Anaheim back on top at 4-3.
Taken away by the Amers. Here's Davies moving in on goal. Backhander. He scores! Davies holds it out in front. Backhander inside the back post. And the Amers win it in overtime.
The Amers face 53 shots. Devin Levi stops 52 of them.
I've never been that great with accepting, praise.
The Nets cannibalizing their head coach. Brooklyn firing Jock Vaughn.
This has been the most unenjoyable experience I've had since I've been coaching.
A massive brawl broke out during the handshake line.
Daytona 500 still brought the drama on Monday. William Byron, the winner for the first time in his career.
95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Hey, good afternoon, and welcome on in to the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia. You found Rochester's only local sports talk show. Glad you're listening along at 95.7 FM. AM 950, The Fan Rochester, where we sound our best, the free-to-download Odyssey app, and our video stream. You can watch the Sports Bar at The Fan Rochester, our YouTube channel, also on Twitch. Don't forget to like and subscribe while you are there. Drop a comment as well if you'd like. We're engaging with you on Twitch and on YouTube. I'm Danger. That's Battaglia.
I'm very disappointed in myself for having zero willpower. I am a very, very weak man right now for just indulging in all these little toffee bars that one of our coworkers brought in.
Dude, and you know me. I mean, I have a sweet tooth. I could eat that whole container full. You could just leave it at my desk. It'll be gone within moments. I won't stop. I can't stop. That's your gift for being a good coworker.
Being a good coworker. Rich Nightingale's wife. All of a sudden, he brings in this whole box full of toffee bars. I'm like, oh my gosh, I love toffee.
Yeah. That, and then you offered it to me, and I was like, I thankfully you took it away because I honestly could have eaten that whole thing.
I left it up on my desk, and yes, there are still radio scavengers. By the time
the vultures will get to
by
it.
the time we get off the air tonight, they'll be mostly gone.
If you left it out in the kitchen counter, forget it. The vultures would get at it. Although the vultures aren't as numerous as they used to be. Even on days where people are, quote unquote, in the office. Are they really in the office?
Yeah, they're making sales calls. They're out right now.
Right. They're working right now. They don't have to worry about coming back in to try some of that delicious toffee, that homemade toffee that was made for you as a thank you gift. Yeah, that's terrible. I mean, that was kind of like the theme of the 3-day weekend, I think, for me, was just a little bit of excess. A little bit too much. We celebrated one of our regulars, a 60th birthday for...
Richie C, right?
No, Nikki G.
Nikki G.
I know, it's hard to get them all straight.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Nikki G celebrated his 60th, and we all hung out at Nikki G's house, and, a lot of bourbon flowing, a lot of IPAs flowing.
What night was this? Friday or Saturday?
Saturday night.
Oh,
Saturday night.
That's why. Okay, then Sunday you were...
Sunday, I'm like, did I just attend a super spreader? Because I feel like I got run over by a truck. And I feel like I saw some people maybe like blowing their nose, or some people that might have showed up and were like, I'm not feeling 100%. But they came out anyways because it's, Nikki G's milestone occasion. Now I'm like, so I'm battling a little bit. Not like anything that would make you, it's cool. I'm fine. I don't feel.
You're responsible. I trust you.
Yes.
So.
I don't want you to come back, in a couple of weeks and be like, you son of a bitch. What did you do to me? Look what you did. It's mutated from your neighborhood and one of the Tonys, and they got you sick, and now you're getting me sick.
2 weeks I went through this. If I started to laugh, forget it. I couldn't breathe type of cold. So, but not contagious, whatever. Right. So, yeah.
Right. But Sunday I was a complete disaster. And then, you know what it was? Sunday as well. And my kids actually identified it. I didn't feel 100%, but they're like, we know what it is. I'm like, what? What is it? There's no football. Yeah, I bet you there's some people that felt like I did on Sunday.
What was there to take take the void? I said, hey, I'm going to check out the NBA All-Star Game for the new court. Did I do that? No. I did not.
The court
no.
wasn't enough to get you.
No. I followed along on the Amerks, so there was that. Where Sunday didn't turn up roses. Yesterday was exciting for sure.
Yeah. College basketball? Yeah. Some the outdoor games in the NHL?
No, I'm firmly planting my flag in. The next time I want to see an outdoor game is never. It just to me is like, what is the point? And I'm not danger.
There were 80,000 people at MetLife Stadium for the game between the Rangers and the Islanders.
It's just to say they were there, though. That's the whole scam. You're going to miss out. You want to be there.
I imagine that was probably a pretty cool atmosphere if you're one of the 80,000 that were at that game. And that game itself, where the Rangers came from behind, they win it in overtime. I mean, send the Islander fans. It was supposed to be a home game for the Islanders, and all the Islander fans that were outnumbered. I want to say it was almost like a 70-30 crowd. Like it was an Islanders home game, but it was like 70% Ranger fans at MetLife. And they get the win in overtime. I mean, that's demoralizing if you're an Islanders fan. I'm with you. It doesn't really do anything for me on TV. That game would have been great if it was played
anywhere.
Anywhere. It would have been a great game. Yeah, I just thought it was funny that my kids were able to identify what was wrong with me before I was able to identify what was wrong with me. They said it, and I'm like, you know what? I think you're right. No football today. What am I doing?
I get this question. You get this question. What are you guys going to talk about now the football season's over? Well, I'll tell you what we're going to talk about. Football. Buffalo Bills football.
Yeah. And don't worry, there's always something. There's always something. We today have what looks like a farewell from well-known Bills wide receiver, Gabe Davis. We'll get into that. Later this hour, we'll be joined by Matt Perino of the Syracuse Post-Standard, the Shout podcast. It's good of Matt to stop by and spend some of his time with us here on a Tuesday afternoon, as he does most Tuesday afternoons. So we'll talk some Buffalo Bills coming up at 3:25. And you mentioned the Amerks, Gino. Seth Appert, Amerks head coach, stops by at 4:25, and we'll recap this weekend's activities. Look ahead as this 7-game and 11-day stretch continues.
Well, I remember there was one game UPL had 50 saves. I believe it was a win in Syracuse. What Devin Levi did yesterday for this team, does that not get you excited, Amerks fans? Because you can face an opponent that on paper looks a lot better, defensively much heavier, like Syracuse, say, for instance. But if you have that guy here, and I would have to believe that's got to be the plan here. Like, what's the point of putting him back up in Buffalo? And even, like, for the clear day roster, at the very least, Devin Levi has to be in Rochester. We'll talk about that with Seth. Also, Yuri Kulik taking kind of a cheap shot on Friday night. I want to get Seth's thoughts on that. So it's been a minute here, and my gosh, the Amerks played Sunday. They play Monday. They play tomorrow. They play Friday. So let's see if Seth Appert
I also want to look at what they have on Saturday. Did you see who they're playing on Saturday? They travel to Hershey.
Oh. But hopefully they're not spent by that point.
Well, that'll be a good test. That's a good measuring stick game, I would imagine. We'll get Seth Appert's take on the Rochester Americans. The head coach joins us at 4:25. You can join us. You're welcome to join us. Pull up a stool at any point at 866-4FAN, 585-866-4326 is our phone number. Gino, I believe what Gabe Davis has posted on social media serves as a goodbye. I think it's safe to say that Gabe Davis is of the belief he has played his final down as a Buffalo Bill.
So, like, why would he think that? Like, honestly, unless through back channels he knows that what his market is. And there's a question I got to ask Matt Perino, because free agency doesn't begin in earnest till March, but then the legal tampering's coming up, and we all kind of think the legal tampering begins next week at the Combine.
I guarantee you that there are conversations happening and people are talking, and nothing is on the record because it can't be, right? But you have an idea. If you're the Buffalo Bills right now, you have an idea of what kind of space you're going to be dealing with, especially at that position, and what you plan on investing at that position for the upcoming season. And you could even say, if you're Gabe Davis or Gabe Davis's representation, yeah, we know what's coming our way from Buffalo, and we know it's not going to be enough. So we're going to go somewhere else. And that's that. You just make up your mind and say, we know what we're going to get from our former team, and we know we can get more from another.
Well, why I think that might be the debatable part is at the end of this. Let me tell a story. There's an 8-minute Instagram that Gabe Davis put out today, and it's highlights. It's the Kansas City game. It's the Pittsburgh reception. There's a lot of other things. But then at the end of this Instagram post, there are 4 slides where there's a bunch of stats and everything and making Gabe Davis look like he's one of the top receivers in the NFL. My favorite one from 2020 to 2023, wide receivers averaging 800-plus receiving yards, 8 touchdowns, and 17 games per season. And here's the list. CeeDee Lamb, DK Metcalf, Mike Evans, Steph Diggs, Tyreek Hill, Gabe Davis. Oh, and by the way, then it tallies up all the targets, and where Diggs had 721 targets, Gabe Davis did this with 336. But while that sounds really, really impressive, what are we really talking about? We're talking about 800 receiving yards. Those kind of grow on trees, do they not? So, sure, you didn't have a lot of targets, but look, you were an effective receiver here, and I think that the Buffalo Bills are up against it when it comes to the cap, so I'm not so sure that Gabe Davis has this offer lined up. Not if his representation is saying, yeah, this is a good idea here for us to kind of spin the numbers and make this look like you're one of the best receivers.
I'm not saying that there's an NFL team out there that's going to look at that or see those numbers and have their eyes pop out of their head and fall over themselves trying to sign Gabe Davis. But I do believe a team will sign Gabe Davis to a lucrative deal, a deal that the Bills will not be able to match or could not match even if they wanted to. So I have no problem with him doing what he did on Instagram. It all makes sense from a Gabe Davis standpoint, from a business standpoint. If you're protecting your brand and you're putting that out there, you're at least making it seem like the team that does eventually sign you is smart. They know what they're doing because they're signing this guy that's in this rarefied air with those names that you mentioned, even though we have eyes and we saw what I would say are the inconsistencies of Gabe Davis. The most consistent element of his game, I'm sure there wasn't anything there in his highlight reel of him blocking, because that to me was Gabe Davis's most consistent feature as a Buffalo Bill. Not a real nuanced route runner. His hands could be questioned. He made some really nice catches and some really big plays when the team needed him to do that. You can't take any of that away from him. Will he be missed? Yeah, I think he will be missed. I think you can replace him, but I think he will be missed. I think another team, I can't imagine a team like Carolina doesn't look at Gabe Davis and says, like, he could be our number one. And then you've got your one, and you get fans excited. And we've got a true weapon for Bryce Young, not named Adam Thielen, right? Like, that's the kind of move that I would see Carolina making.
Houston took Devin Singletary, some up-and-coming team. Let's get our young quarterback more weapons. Any team danger that is not paying their quarterback will probably sniff around on Gabe Davis. And ultimately, the conversation kind of comes back to this, because there is one team out there that you look at their receivers and you're like, wow, how did they win the Super Bowl? Like, if Gabe Davis goes to Kansas City, does that change the conversation? Does that we can't let him go to Kansas City? They're going to sign some receiver.
Yeah. Well, when you look at the list of free agent wide receivers that are out there, and you kind of think about what the Bills' cap situation could look like here, what's the best case scenario in terms of bringing in a wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills in free agency? It's. I'll tell you what, I don't know that it's any better than what they did last year when they brought in Hardy and Greg Sherfield. Neither name really inspired a lot of confidence. You're like, oh, we could sell ourselves on the benefits of a Trent Sherfield or a Deontay Hardy. Hardy is really fast. He can return touchdowns, and he did. He made a play when you needed him to make a play, right? So in that regard, you can get excited about a player like a Hardy. But when I look at the list, all I can really see, like the names that I see aren't really, is the best case scenario you get a guy like DJ Chark? I feel like that's the best case scenario for the Bills in free agency for wide receiver this year.
Well, Gabe Davis, there's a couple title things, and I'm going to credit Matthew Bove, for coming up with this stat here. But Brandon Beane, if there is one position he has completely ignored in the draft, it's not the offensive line, it's the wide receivers. Would you be surprised to know that Gabe Davis was actually, as a fourth rounder, the highest selection here?
Yeah.
And again, Brandon Beane, 6 years as the Bills GM, he selected 2 in the 5th round. 2022, Khalil Shakir. 2023, Justin Shorter. 2 in the 6th round. 2018, Ray McLeod.
Yeah.
Marquez Stevenson, remember him? And then 1 in the 7th round, and we had him on the show, remember? Austin Prohl.
Oh, right. That felt like a favor.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Right. And the thing that's funny is we don't view it as this, but he does. He did invest in a first round pick in a wide receiver.
Okay, fair enough. That was the collateral to get Steph Diggs.
Yes, and that's how he's going to view it. You can't really throw that at him because he'll be like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. We gave up a first round pick and we got Steph Diggs out of it. Look what Diggs did while he was here. Pretty productive. Maybe rather have Justin Jefferson, but you can't take it away from Brandon Beane, and you can't look back and be like, "Oh, the Diggs trade, didn't work." No, it worked for both teams. That's one of those instances where you have clear winners on both sides. But when I look at free agency, man, at this position, some of the names that are out there that we know will get paid. I mean, if they don't franchise tag T. Higgins, he's going to get his, and maybe they do. Mike Evans is going to command a high dollar. I mean, Odell Beckham Jr. made $15 million last year in Baltimore. That's not going to fly, right? You can't even come close to that. So maybe you can get DJ Chark, who made $5 million last year. Maybe you can get somebody like that at a discount, who's still under 30, has a pretty decent history in the league, 35 receptions last season. But I would say that if you got somebody like that, I'd be more excited about this offseason than the last offseason, because when we heard the names Trent Sherfield and Deontay Hardy, I think everybody was like, huh? Who? What? This is as good as it's going to get? And that might be exactly what we get again this offseason at wide receiver.
Yeah, there are just a lot of names. If you play fantasy football, you'll recognize the names like Van Jefferson or, certainly Laviska Shenault. I mean, they're
right. Those are the kind of guys.
Those are the kind of guys. And Danger, I'm fine with that, because what the wide receiver room should look like is, and again, we could debate this, but Steph Diggs still is a number one. He's not going anywhere, and I don't think the Bills should renegotiate his contract because you're kicking the can down the road, but he's your number one, and you do have, where do you put Shakir? I think Shakir as a number 3 is pretty good. You really need to find the number 2, and the most likely way to get that number 2 receiver, it's not going to be Justin Shorter. Justin Shorter is battling for 4 or 5. It really is the draft, and that's why it's fascinating to me how everybody's going to zero in on this is what the Bills should do in the first round. However, there are so many needs on this team. In order to get that receiver you really want, you have to trade up. And I'd argue let the draft come to you. And since you do have all these other needs, I know Bills fans don't want to hear this, but maybe waiting until the second round to get that receiver. If you can just have the fortitude to just kind of wait there. But Brandon Beane, when he sees what he wants, what he likes, I mean, he went up last year, got the tight end, who was kind of like a wide receiver. But
everybody told me he was a wide receiver. I thought when he was drafted, he wasn't a tight end. He was a wide receiver.
He was, one. We're not playing, 12 personnel. It's 1.5, 11 and a half.
That's right. Quez Watkins. That's a name that just jumped off the page at me. Free agent out of Philadelphia. Hard for him to get his looks in a Philadelphia receiving room that has some pretty big names on it. That would be interesting to me. But I don't know. I mean, that for that to be the thing that gets me excited about free agency, a wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills, let's keep our expectations in check and kind of assume that Gabe Davis is going on to greener pastures and will make more green along that way, because the Bills just won't be able to afford him.
Like the idea that Mike Evans is going to become a Buffalo Bill, that's
Sorry.
No.
Sorry, not happening. I mean, no. I would love to say yes, but no, it can't. Just because of the situation that they find themselves in with the cap and all of these contracts that they have to work around. It's not ideal. It's not ideal. I wonder what Matt Perino has to say about not just Gabe Davis, but maybe some of these wide receiver free agent options that could be available to the Buffalo Bills as we check in with Matt Perino. We try to check in with him every Tuesday to talk some Buffalo Bills. Even through the offseason, there's no quit in his game. He's talking Bills all year long.
Like Shout podcast, content, and also this time next week, we're talking Combine.
Yes.
Yeah, so here we go.
This hour of the Sports Bar is brought to you by the Farmer's Dog. Fresh, human-grade dog food delivered right to your door. Matt Perino covering the Buffalo Bills for the Syracuse Post-Standard. Our guest next.
update.
Buffalo Bills wide receiver Gabe Davis posting an 8-minute highlight reel today on Instagram, seemingly to say goodbye to the Bills fan base. We'll get the thoughts from Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard, and the Shout podcast. That's coming up next here in the Sports Bar. Rochester Americans coming off a spectacular performance by Devin Levi. 52 shots, turning aside yesterday in the win at Toronto. Team back home tomorrow night against Belleville. We'll talk to Amerks head coach Seth Appert next hour here in the Sports Bar. Syracuse basketball tonight, clinging to postseason hopes. The Orange playing at NC State. Tonight here on The Fan, we've got St. John Fisher basketball. It's the opening round of the Empire 8 tournament as the Cardinal men are home against Houghton. Nick Coble will have the coverage beginning at 6 o'clock. Sports is brought to you by GetMyPerks.com. Save half off to Lasertron in Henrietta. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader. The Fan, Rochester.
Straight up with no chaser. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
All right, so Gabe Davis is taking to social media. Looks like a farewell to Buffalo Bills fans. We welcome in Matt Perino of the Syracuse Post-Standard and the Shout podcast. Matt, I don't think anybody's surprised that Gabe Davis is. Are you surprised by the timing of this? I mean, we're still a ways away from free agency. Is this just Davis setting the table in the hopes that a team will pay more than the Bills are willing or able to pay him to come back?
No, I'm not overly surprised at the timing, only because, conversations with your own free agents, they're kind of ongoing once the season happens. So, I'm sure that, I think Sal had a tweet today, Sal Capaccio, that I thought was, right on the money, that, I think both sides in a perfect world would love for it to be right and for Davis to return and the money to be right and to bring him back and maybe draft a wide receiver and put Davis in what I think is a little bit more of what his role should be, and maybe as a wide receiver too. I know that wasn't the story he was trying to tell with that video that he put out, but I just don't know that the money is going to work. You have so much work to do on the salary cap to get it to a place where you could just have a seat at the table to make some minimal moves. This might not be a minimal move. Now, we haven't seen what his market is going to look like, and sure, I think he's getting ahead of things. This was as much of a goodbye video as it was a hype video, right? And this is the hype season for a lot of these free agents that are going to, be having a lot of conversations with teams. So I don't think the door is necessarily completely shut. I just think that in a realistic world that everybody is living in, it's probably more likely that Davis is playing elsewhere in 2024.
Yeah, if we and again, I think most Bills fans say, yeah, I would like to have Gabe Davis on the team, and he was voted a team captain, so his teammates certainly respect him. Matt, I'm going to ask you the question. I don't know if there's an answer to, but why would you get the boom or bust kind of production out of Gabe Davis? Some games it's 100 yards. Other games he's getting 3 targets. So and with one side of the field with Steph Diggs drawing so much attention, why in his Bills tenure was the production for Gabe Davis so erratic?
That's a great question, and I think that it's interesting that if you look at that first stat slide in his video that he posted, at the bottom, there was a bunch of really good stats, right? All the production that he's had and all the numbers he's put up since 2020. And then there was the target share. And I think he ranked 47th among wide receivers in target share since 2020. I think if I'm quoting that slide correctly. Yep. And that's significant. I mean, I never thought that he was a guy that the Bills leaned on in their offense. Stephon Diggs has always been the bell cow of that wide receiver room, getting the lion's share of the targets. And so I think trying to fit into that up and down nature and what they asked him to do. I mean, even Sean McDermott said in that clip, it's like, sometimes we ask Gabe to do certain things, and maybe being this elite wide receiver blocker, hindered the rest of his game. We saw the upside over the course of his career. I mean, the Steelers game, the Chiefs game, those are two that kind of come to mind. I do think that if we're being honest, you listen to some of the film folks, as a separator at times, Gabe Davis wasn't always getting open. And that's not me saying it. I don't sit there and grind the all 22 like some folks do. But I think that like that ability to consistently when defenses are zeroing in on you, and to your point, Gene, that you have Diggs on the other side, you should be able to get open a little bit more than maybe that he was over the course of his career. But I do think that, you know, when we live in a world in 2024, depending on what the Bills do at the position, I think they'll miss Gabe Davis. I think he's the kind of guy over 4 years that maybe he wasn't super consistent, but he was dependable. He had some big games in big spots. And, you know, not even the Chiefs game, which is obviously the one that everybody's going to always talk about with him. But remember his rookie season against the Colts when they were banged up at receiver. You know, they don't win that game at home against the Colts 27-24 without Davis, who made, I think, 3 or 4 huge, pivotal drive, catches that kept drives going. If he doesn't make those plays, I don't know if they win that game. And so he had those moments over the course of his career, but those big-time moments always led to more, man, why isn't it happening more consistently for him? And that's an answer that we've never been able to find.
Yeah, I mean, I'll always remember some of those catches he made as a rookie and his second year. I mean, he some eye-popping catches on the sideline, just always seemed to come down with it, and then that would be followed up with a game where, you know, he's got 3 drops, and you're kind of wondering what happened. Where's Gabe Davis? I want to talk a little bit about what the expectation should be for Bills fans here, looking at free agent wide receivers, if Davis indeed is going on to greener pastures, Matt. But I'm curious as to what you think he might actually fetch out there. There's plenty of teams that do have cap space. There are plenty of teams that do have a need at wide receiver. Do you have an idea of where you think he might go and what kind of dollar he might command?
I mean, I think if a team is really looking for that like middle tier, almost in line with some of what the guys got last year, like the Juju Smith-Schusters and the Jacoby Myers, where you're looking at somewhere around $11 million per season. I think there's a world where Gabe Davis fetches that. I also think that because of some of the higher-end guys in free agency this year, and potentially you got to also factor in the guys that might get released before the start of free agency. Mike Williams out in L.A. could really complicate things for Gabe Davis because you got Mike Evans at the top of the class. You have Michael Pittman also, who is going to be one of the prime free agent targets. After some of these guys get, you know, paid, most of the teams that fit in after that don't have the same kind of pockets in terms of free agent cap spending. So I think that could be the world that we live in where, okay, now on the other side of this, 3 or 4 days into free agency, if he doesn't sign a deal, now all of a sudden maybe he's got to come back to the table with the Bills and figure out, okay, I know I'm comfortable here. They voted me a captain last year. I'm best friends with Josh Allen. I think Allen said in that clip that him and Gabe Davis hang out quite a bit. That's something that I'm not ruling out. I think that's kind of what happened with Matt Milano. Remember, everybody thought he was as good as gone, and then they found a way to make him, make room for him. Now, that was in a different era when the Bills had a lot more money to spend. I still think Gabe Davis is going to be looking for, at the lowest, probably like $8 million per season, or maybe a 1-year deal at $8 million. But then you have to start wondering, okay, if he wants one for $8 somewhere to kind of try to cash in next year, is he going to be able to cash in Buffalo, where they're probably going to draft a wide receiver early, and now those waters are muddied there as well. This goodbye video could be exactly that. Him just kind of reading the room, seeing the direction the Bills might be going in at the position, and realizing that no matter how it shakes out in free agency, he needs a new setting to try to like really cash in with big time numbers.
Matt Perino, Syracuse Post Standard, and the Shout podcast. I'm glad you brought up Allen, because to the one extreme, and these are guys that played in their 40s, like Tom Brady, and what we saw Aaron Rodgers do with the Jets, where he's bringing in his guys here. Is Josh Allen, does he weigh in, do we know, on personnel decisions? Matt, should he weigh in? Because I would think that if he picked up the phone and said, hey, Brandon, let's find a way to get Gabe Davis back on the roster, they maybe not acquiesce to it, but they would certainly have to listen to their leader.
I think so, but I get the sense that Josh isn't as involved in personnel stuff, or at least he hasn't been in years past. I mean, if you think about a couple of guys that he was super close with over the years, I mean, Cole Beasley was a guy that was released and then obviously brought back later. But, that was a move that I thought at the time Josh Allen would take issue with. And when we got to, whenever it was we talked to him, it was the company line, right? Like, it's a business. We know that. We love Cole, but you have to move on. Like, this is a conversation that they're going to be having every year with, tough conversations with guys that have meant a lot to Allen. Even a couple years ago with John Feliciano, who started in the Super Bowl a couple weeks ago, him and Allen were super tight. When Feliciano was injured, he had I can't remember if it was the shoulder or something leg. He was out for a while at the start of the season. He shared a video on social media of Josh Allen coming over, pouring him a glass of wine with his leg up or his shoulder wrapped, whatever it was. They were super tight. So I don't think that that's going to be something where that comes into play. I'm sure that if he was super passionate about it, they would listen. But I get the sense that it's Josh Allen checking in for work when the season starts with whatever guys Brandon Beane gives them.
Matt, assuming that Davis is gone, and knowing that the Bills have this issue with the salary cap and don't have a lot of money to spend in free agency, should the expectation be a best case scenario for the Bills at wide receiver specifically in free agency is similar to what they did last year, guys like Hardy and Sherfield, or are there some names out there that we might be more familiar with because of their tenure with other teams? A DJ Shark, I think of for whatever reason, a guy like Quez Watkins just jumps off the page at me. Are there values to be had for the Buffalo Bills at wide receiver in free agency?
Yeah, there's a couple of interesting guys that I've started to kind of think about. I think Quez Watkins is one that is super intriguing, former draft pick of the Eagles. I also like, he hasn't had a great run, especially recently in Detroit, but Donovan Peoples-Jones, former second-round pick, you could probably get him for very, very low money. He's somebody that at least comes in and becomes a fail-safe depending on what you do in the draft. If maybe you take two wide receivers and you feel like they're not ready, although I would argue that whether or not they're ready or not, they should be on the field. I think we've had that conversation quite a bit on the other side of the ball with Kyer Elam. There's a couple of different guys. I mean, the Super Bowl potential MVP in Juwan Jennings, I think, he's a restricted free agent. He probably ends up back in San Francisco, but he's an interesting name. I also think, when you look over the entire list, there's some intriguing guys. I mean, Van Jefferson, I remember covering him coming out. There was a lot of hype around him. It hasn't really worked out. I didn't like the landing spot in Atlanta this past season. I thought there were some good things early on with the Rams. He was banged up as well. Even a guy like Chase Claypool, who the Bills were high on back during the draft process, sometimes it just takes the right fit for a guy to come into a culture and maybe link up with another wide receiver, maybe somebody on the coaching staff. Ronald Curry is a guy that I know he's going to be in the quarterback's room, but potentially any incoming wide receivers, I'd be really interested in that voice in the offensive meeting rooms. I know Adam Henry is still there, and he's a guy that's pretty respected in the league, although we didn't hear a lot about him in his first season, as opposed to Chad Hall, who we heard over and over again about how much he meant to those wide receivers. And then there's guys that are familiar. I mean, I wouldn't rule out them bringing back an Isaiah McKenzie, who has been here in the past. He doesn't really fit that boundary wide receiver need, but if you're looking to throw some darts, there's a lot of lower-end dart throws that I think you can make that are super interesting.
Yeah, Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard. So, Matt, I'm assuming you're in Indianapolis next week, if I recall correctly?
Yes, sir. I take off I changed my flight. They're moving Sean McDermott to Monday. Usually speaks on Tuesday. So I had to move my first thing out on Monday morning. I will be there. Brandon Beane talks on Tuesday, and then the prospects get going on Wednesday.
So give us a sense, because of the prospects, like we're all going to be kind of zeroed in on the wide receivers, but I mean, what do you really learn other than they all kind of come up to the podium? What can we hope to learn about this wide receiver class coming up next week, Matt?
I think we get a better sense of what the evaluators, pro staff, like scouts, so on and so forth. A lot of conversations are had during that week, whether it be, at the convention center during the day or at Prime Steakhouse at night or, a couple of High Velocity is another bar that is often frequented by NFL personnel. So I think it's about the conversations and figuring out, all right, what do people really think about these prospects? I know going into this time, if I was listening to Daniel Jeremiah last week on his podcast, Move the Sticks, and he says he tries to have everybody of importance, their film covered by the time he gets to the combine, or at least by the time everybody gets out there on the track. And so you have all of these scouts and media folks that have really been grinding the tape on all these guys really start to put their boards together, which I think, if you want to talk about the importance in terms of spots in the process, to me this is an important spot because sometimes opinions change once we get to pro days and you get inside people's buildings and, people are getting talked up. To me, this is the first real full look with everybody going off the tape, which I think is really important. Things will change over the course of the next couple of months. Medicals will be done, all that kind of thing. But we'll get a real sense of this draft class come the end of the week next week in Indy.
Matt, I know a lot of people, and this is the conversation that'll be evergreen between now and the end of April. I know a lot of people believe that it's going to be a wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills in round one. Are we all prepared for them to go defense round one? I mean, have we mentally told ourselves that the drop off from wide receiver 3 to wide receiver 4 maybe is more worth a second round pick or a third round pick, considering that Brandon Beane is never really invested in the draft in wide receiver, with the exception of trading for that first round pick for Steph Diggs?
I'm just very concerned about the drop-off after those first 4 wide receivers. I mean, I know a lot of mocks have Brian Thomas from LSU landing to the Bills at 28, but this is a wide receiver league. And I feel like somebody is going to trade up early in the 20s to go get this guy, depending on how he tests. He's probably going to fly the combine, which is going to, all of a sudden we're going to start seeing, 12 or 13 picks and 4 wide receivers gone in mock drafts 2 weeks from now. Mark that down right now. I'm telling you it's going to start happening. And you're going to see Troy Franklin moving up. And so then you're in a precarious situation if you're Brandon Beane, because I don't think this is the year, with the situation they're in salary cap-wise, to start trading away multiple picks. You have to replenish the cupboards at multiple position groups. And I think teams like Houston, teams like Detroit, that were in the final 8 this year, in Detroit in the Final 4, they've shown that you can find talent in the second and third round at the wide receiver position. And so I think at this stage, and we'll see, maybe there's a prospect that really jumps out to me over the next 2 months, a month and a half, and I'm now, all right, go all in, trade up, get that guy, because you do need to fill that wide receiver 1 of the future. But I've never been more trade back at this point, or sit and pick if you really find a difference maker at a position, maybe a defensive tackle, an edge rusher, somebody of that kind of caliber. But you need to get, if you're going to stay in draft in the first round, you have to get a premier position. You have to get a pass rusher. You have to get a defensive lineman, or you have to get a wide receiver. And I just don't know if the wide receiver talent level is going to be there at 28, and trading up is going to be costly.
Matt, is another recurring question we've had, but kind of a story that came out over the weekend. The Bills having to be cap compliant, having to be under the cap, and these decisions that need to be made. And now you have the story from Florio over the weekend that the cap could be as high as $250 million, which would be roughly $8 million over what we kind of estimated. Are you putting any stock into that, and how much would that help the Bills here in their effort to get under the cap?
I mean, it would help the Bills for sure. I mean, any more money available to them at this point with the work that Beane has to do. I mean, think about this. Early estimations were maybe like $50 million over the cap if it came in at about 240, 241. So you think the Josh Allen contract is this big saver, but you only knock out half of that if it was at $50 million, because if you do the restructure of his deal, convert the base salary and the roster bonus, you're looking at $23 million in added cap space. You still got $23 to $24 million to go in that previous scenario. Now you knock that down to 13, 14, 15, and it's a completely different conversation. Now, I don't think they're going to get to a place, even if the cap is that high, where they're going to be spenders, but maybe you can take a swing on a Connor McGovern-like contract, and maybe that ends up being like the Daquan Jones contract, because I still am advocating for them to do that. I think he meant enough to their defensive line to run that back with him if you can get that done. I don't know what the money's going to look like, but I think that there's going to be more like potential one-year deals if that cap balloons up to $250, and some of the work that they're going to probably do to get under some extensions, some cap casualties, maybe a restructure or two, although, I wouldn't restructure too many. Like the Dawson Knox restructure can be done, but you just drafted Dalton Kincaid, and you have 3 years, 4 years if you count his fifth-year option. Do you want to be tied to another high-priced tight end? It's crazy to me, guys. I was looking at this today. Dawson Knox is scheduled to count against the Bills cap the same number in 2024 that Travis Kelce's going to count against the Chiefs cap. And that is just that's hard to stomach, and that's not a knock on Dawson Knox, but just from a roster construction perspective, that is a bad place to be in. If you restructure that deal, you're looking at least another year where you have to be committed to that contract, and that's something that I don't think I'm willing to be if I'm Brandon Beane.
Matt, it wasn't lost on us that last Wednesday before all the chaos in Kansas City, they were celebrating at a parade while Josh Allen was playing golf with Tiger Woods. And if we're allowed, can we connect some dots here? Allen is out on the course with Tiger, and then Tiger calls in sick a couple days later. Did Josh Allen break Tiger Woods at the Genesis? What are we hearing?
Did he break them, or did they just get after it at the bar scene?
That's what I'm wondering.
Either of those two things could have happened. Josh Allen can put him back. I mean, there's some legendary stories about that. Anybody that, like, pregame ritual is just going into the locker room and, like, puking, I mean, he's a different animal. Like, so who knows? I mean, Tiger Woods is his own kind of unique animal. He's a little bit older. Like, he's not in his prime anymore. Who knows what could happen?
I can only imagine. Matt, what are you and Ryan working on this week here? There's always something happening with this Buffalo Bills team as we're headed to the Combine next week.
Indeed. We will. We've been promising this episode for a few weeks. We put out a call to our insiders. One move that if you were Brandon Beane's assistant and you had to pound the table for one move that he would listen to you on, what would it be? We're going to go into some of those. Tomorrow night, Ryan's on vacation in Arizona, but we are going to light up the Shout Buffalo Bills football podcast one more time before Indy, and then we'll obviously have you covered on the site and on the podcast all next week from Indianapolis.
Fantastic work as always, bud. We'll look forward to catching up with you next week from Indy.
Sounds good. Have a great one, guys.
You got it.
Thanks, Matt.
Matt Perino covering the Buffalo Bills for the Syracuse Post-Standard, the Shout podcast. And again, Perino doesn't take breaks. Guy's just all about the Bills, covering the team. He's one of the best out there. Love having him on with us every Tuesday here on the Sports Bar.
Yeah, and if you were jumping in late, the first half of the conversation was about Gabe Davis, and I think today's story was one we knew was coming. I just didn't think it was going to happen today per se, and it just comes off to me a little bit like Gabe Davis's people are kind of forcing the issue and making sure that their client is getting recognition.
This isn't unprecedented. Jordan Poyer did the same thing just last year. Wasn't it last year that he did his goodbyes? And he ended up back in Buffalo, right? Was it 2 years ago?
2 years ago.
2 years ago. His wife is posting goodbye. Everybody's posting goodbyes.
And then the market wasn't there.
Right. Now, when you look at what Gabe Davis could command, his calculated market value according to Spot Track, do you want to take a guess at what that number is? Per year?
10.
Higher.
What? Oh, come on.
I believe this. They got it listed at 13.6. I think a team will pay him $13 million.
Well, you can understand why. You just can't do that.
Well, we say you can't do that, but a team, I think, will do that.
Well, in the instance of the Buffalo Bills, that would be you could, but now you're the New Orleans Saints, where you're just doing.
Understood.
Yeah.
Yes, the Bills can't do that, but a team can do that. And when you look at the production for a guy that is 25, not even. He'll be 25 next year. I mean, Odell Beckham Jr. made $15 million in Baltimore last year. $15 million in Baltimore last year. I get it. It's Odell Beckham Jr., but you didn't get the production for what you paid.
Well, what could the wild card here? Matt brought this up. Like, we're going to have cap casualties. We always do. So if there are players like Mike Williams hitting the street, will that create less opportunity? Yeah, this is the first year where you're going to have guys that walk away. And when we go back to this time last year, we all kind of knew, Tremaine Edmonds was going to get a big offer, and well, he did, and we were all fine with it. So why is this any different? Because it's a wide receiver? Because I have a theory on it.
I'll be fine with it.
Here's my theory.
Let's hear it.
How many games in the NFL have you seen, period, like the one that Gabe Davis put up in Kansas City? That's the ceiling. And when you see the ceiling, it's like, whoa, give me more of that. You can't tell me it was just because the Chiefs had a corner that was just so terrible.
No.
So what? Why?
I think that the plays, the big plays, are eye-popping. If you play fantasy football, you know he's boom or bust. And that's the thing that could scare teams away, is the inconsistency. But we're talking about arrogant coaches, arrogant owners that will look at a guy like Gabe Davis at 25 years old and say, we can fix him.
Or they weren't using him the right way.
We can get more out of him. We can get more out of him. If we pay him $14 million a year, we'll get more out of him. He'll be our one, and we'll make sure he's our one. You know there are teams out there that are going to do that. You just know that there's going to be a team out there that's going to invest. If they're saying 13.6 on Spot Track, I think, yeah, he could get 13, 14 million. That wouldn't shock me at all. Per year? When Mike Williams is getting 20 million a year? When Odell Beckham, for that lack of production in Baltimore, got 15 last year? Gabe Davis will be just fine. At 25 years old?
Yeah.
You can plug your nose past the inconsistencies if you're an NFL head coach or GM looking for help at wide receiver. I'll Drink to That is on the way next. We've got some takes on tap.
Yeah, I want to expand here on why Gabe Davis moving on may not be such a bad thing, but I'm going to put it in this context about Joe Brady. And I think one thing we should dive into is we talk about Joe Brady when he was with LSU. No. Let's look back at his Carolina time. I brought this up once, but I think diving into this gives us a clue as to where the Bills' offense may be headed. And because I just like needling my buddy here, Mike Danger, because I know he loves Giannis Antetokounmpo, I thought he said something a little questionable over the weekend.
We learned more about the new college football playoff format that Gene can't wait for next year. And how one program specifically is at a pretty significant disadvantage.
Now, this is funny. That's funny when
we'll
you're going to bring this up. Yeah.
Also, hearing news today that the Vikings reportedly aren't willing to give Kirk Cousins a fully guaranteed contract. So, Gino, why not make some bold predictions here in the quarterback carousel on February 20th? I'm going to plant my flag. Ooh. I'm going to tell you my bold predictions for where I think these guys go. The dominoes will fall, and I'm going to start with my team. I'm going to tell you where I think Justin Fields ends up.
I was going to say, okay, so Justin Fields, okay, you're saying he's going to get dealt. That's the first part. Or you're not ready to tell me that?
No, I have it all. I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 4 teams, 4 dominoes that will fall here. 4 quarterbacks. We'll get into that and more next before we're joined by Amerks head coach Seth Appert, who stops by the sports bar to talk some Rochester Americans hockey at 4:25. And plus your phone calls, always welcome, at 585-866-4FAN, 866-4326.
The Fan Rochester.
Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Mike Danger for FanDuel Sportsbook, the official partner of 95.7 The Fan. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams when they return to action this week. Quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com FanDuel.com/Mike and shoot your shot. FanDuel.com/Mike, MIKE. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. 21 plus and physically present in New York. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
Odyssey has sports for every fan. Keep up with your favorite teams from across the country and get the inside scoop from experts. AUDACY. Odyssey.
Progressive presents Precious Moments.
Hey, Jess, want to come for a ride on my motorcycle? You know, we can talk about our feelings and explore our emotional compatibility.
I thought you'd never ask.
The exchange you just heard didn't actually happen, but it could. Bundle your home and other vehicles with Progressive and you could use the savings to make sure the motorcycle is always ready for your dream girl. So keep the dream alive and the savings coming with Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Not available in all states.
Get ready. This week, Staples has deals so good, you're going to want to sit down. Are you sitting? I'll wait. Great. Right now, during Staples Sit-a-thon, you can save up to $180 on select chairs. That's up to $180 off desk chairs, up to $180 off computer chairs, and up to $180 off gaming chairs. So hurry into Staples now for the Staples Sit-a-thon and grab a seat or two. Ends 3/2. In-store only. See associate for details.
And on ball, score!
Join the Rochester Nighthawks as they host...
Rochester Sports Update.
Buffalo Bills wide receiver Gabe Davis posting an 8-minute highlight reel today on Instagram, seemingly to say goodbye to the Buffalo Bills fan base. Davis to become a free agent next month. Rochester Americans are back home tomorrow night against Belleville. The Amerks coming off that win in Toronto yesterday afternoon. We'll talk to Amerks head coach Seth Appert coming up later this hour here in the Sports Bar. Syracuse basketball tonight. The Orange trying to keep their postseason hopes alive. They need a win. They're taking on NC State on the road. Tonight we've got St. John Fisher basketball. The Cardinals in the opening round of the Empire 8 tournament. They're home against Houghton. Nick Colby will have your call beginning at 6 o'clock. Sports is brought to you by GetMyPerks.com. Today, save half off the Lasertron in Henrietta. For this and other great deals, log on to GetMyPerks.com today. Gene Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Justin Fields supposedly unfollowing the Bears on Instagram was a giant.
Oh, who cares?
Patriots special teamer Matthew Slater announces his retirement.
Mike Danger.
Welcome to the Sports Bar. Jennifer Coolidge cut the
Gene Battaglia.
Talking some Sabres hockey.
Luukkonen got it, but not enough, and Terry has put Anaheim back on top at 4-3.
Taken away by the Amateurs. Davies moving in on goal. Backhander. He scores! Davies pulls it out in front. Backhander inside the back post. And the Amerks win it in overtime.
The Amerks face 53 shots. Devin Levi stops 52 of them.
I've never been that great with accepting praise.
The Nets cannibalizing their head coach. Brooklyn firing Jock Vaughn.
This has been the most unenjoyable experience I've had since I've been coaching.
A massive brawl broke out during the handshake line.
Daytona 500 still brought the drama on Monday. William Byron, the winner for the first time in his career.
95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
You're about 20 minutes away from Amerks head coach Seth Appert making his weekly visit into the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia. Glad you're with us and listening along locally at 95.7 FM and AM 950. We sound our best in the free-to-download Odyssey app. That's AUDACY. You can also watch the Sports Bar. Our stream is up. Our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester, also streaming on Twitch at The Fan Rochester. This time every day, we share some takes with Aldring to that.
Yeah, and it's a take, Danger, that I brought this up before. I'm like, wait a second, there's more here. Let me dive in, okay? And it's this. When Joe Brady was the offensive coordinator in Carolina, we kind of skip over that, right? It happened in 2020. And you know what? They were actually pretty good that year. Everyone got fed in that offense. That Carolina 2020 offense was only the fifth in NFL history to have 4 skilled players go over 1,000 yards. And interestingly, CMC wasn't one of them. The 4. 3 wide receivers, DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, and Robbie Anderson.
Wow.
Now Robbie Chosen. The running back, he actually just retired yesterday, Mike Davis. Could the Buffalo Bills become the 6th team in NFL history? Yeah, that should be the goal this year. And certainly, too, you can pencil in right away if they're healthy, being Steph Diggs and certainly James Cook. I believe, Danger, that Dalton Kincaid is ready to take that step as a tight end.
Okay.
So who would be the 4th? Like Khalil Shakir, like we're talking about Davis. Who did Josh Allen trust in the second half last season? It was Khalil Shakir. But I don't know if he's ready to kind of amass those type of yards. The potential first-round wide receiver could also get targets. Growing the secondary targets on the Bills' offense, that is a storyline I'm looking forward to seeing. Danger, Brady did this in Carolina. I should be able to do this in Buffalo.
I think so. I don't know that Shakir is the same level of talent as a Curtis Samuel. I think Moore is a more talented wide receiver. I'd put Moore kind of on the same playing field as Diggs. Cook certainly, appears as if he's going to be a better running back through his career than Mike Davis was. It was surprising that McCaffrey wasn't one of the 4, but he was injured that year, wasn't he? I want to say that
right.
He was in and out of that lineup dealing with injuries. What I love about Shakir, the hands, he doesn't drop anything, and he did have that trust of Allen. Can he get the kind of separation that you need him to get? And he kind of takes this role now that was occupied by Cole Beasley in those early years of Josh Allen, right? The guy that you can trust to move the chains. Can he get consistent separation? Because if it's on him, he's catching it.
Well, I think it comes down to health, right? If Khalil Shakir is healthy and is in 17 games, basic math, 58 yards a game. To me, like the funny part is, right now we should say, "Oh my gosh, that's a lock. The Bills are going to become this team," and I'm not so sure.
Well, I don't think it's as easy as we're making it sound. It's only happened 5 times, right? I mean, his team was the 5th team ever to do it, where you had 4 separate guys with over 1,000 total yards.
Right. So if somebody gets hurt, then there it goes. And if somebody doesn't perform, like who's to say that Steph Diggs? This was like what you saw at the end of last year. We're not talking about this. Is that the beginning of the end? Oh, come on, Gene. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, okay, well, I'm just putting it out there that eventually all receivers' production kind of tails off. So what if we're not going to see the Diggs that we used to see?
It's one of the things that I'll look forward to seeing at camp when we get to that here late July, August, is does Steph Diggs still get the kind of separation, still run the routes that we've always seen him run? I don't think that is going to fall off, but does the speed fall off a little bit? Is he not as quick as he used to be? That, or is it just like what we saw last year, where you could expect a hot start, just know that there's going to be a wall that gets hit somewhere in the middle of the season, and that's where Diggs might tail off again? I don't know that the Diggs story is completely written as far as this offseason goes either. I mean, I can't rule anything out because of just where the Bills are and the decisions that they have to make here this offseason in terms of how they view the 2024 season and then beyond. It feels as if the 2024 season could be one of these seasons where they have to look in the mirror and be like, yeah, given what we have and the decisions we've made leading up to this point, we might just have to live with some of these bad deals and hope that we can get value where there doesn't appear to be any.
And that would mean you're on your hands basically for free agency, and maybe you get a scrap here or there in June.
Correct. Hey, we learned more about the new college football playoff format for the upcoming season. And because they can't win a conference, Notre Dame can never be a top 4 seed in the new college football playoff bracket. So congratulations to Notre Dame on staying independent with this belief that your program holds the weight it did a generation ago. There is no more magic. There is no more mystique. And with this new format, there's no advantage for the Domers. Just join the ACC. What are you waiting for?
Well, right, but do they want to join the ACC? Like, if the ACC has a shelf life of 5 years, and I think that's what we kind of expect, right? With Florida State, and would they take a Clemson and the blue chip basketball programs with them? Like, Notre Dame, this is it. They have to make the decision. Also, wait a second. How many conferences are they saying? 5? So you mean to tell me that there's a golden ticket for either Washington State or Oregon State in this, with the Pac-12 being 2 teams now? Is that what I understand here?
I don't know that that's exactly how it's going to work. Did I say 5? I said 4.
5. It's 5 plus 7.
5 plus 7. So the 7 are the at-large, but the 5
are the SEC, the Big 10, the Big 12, the ACC, and the Pac-2.
The Pac-2 gets in over Notre Dame, no matter what the record. Even if they're the number 1 team in the country going into the postseason, the best they can do is what? The 5th seed? 6th seed?
Yeah. That's crazy.
Tough sledding for the Domers.
Yeah. I know you love yourself some Giannis Antetokounmpo. And, of course, the All-Star Weekend is a weekend where everybody has a mic on them. And, Giannis says, yeah, when it comes to actually liking the sport and watching the sport, yeah, he doesn't watch basketball whatsoever.
I just, in general, do not watch basketball. So, stats, highlights, how people play, I have no idea. And I love it, I love it when I go to the game. I have no idea who I'm playing.
Okay, let's
lies.
Let's review. I don't watch any basketball. I have no idea who I'm playing or what they do. I guess we killed Tyreek Hill for saying that he doesn't watch film, folks. I think this is it with Giannis, because this is what we want out of our superstars. He's not MJ. He's not Kobe. We loved those players, and you deep down loved them, okay? Even though you may have cheered against them, you respected the fact because they were assassins. They would do anything to win a championship. Yeah. And you know what that made them? Miserable. I would imagine that Kobe Bryant, while he was playing, hey, lovable Kobe in his post, with his daughter and everything else, that's a different guy. But while he's playing, I imagine he was miserable. And we've watched enough of the MJ documentary, miserable human being. I don't think this guy, he's smoking something else here.
I wouldn't even say miserable. I would just say wired differently, like fueled to compete, and that is it. Have to compete. Won't stop competing, going to compete no matter what. Just competitive at every turn. And you hear something like this, and it's like, oh, yeah, I'm just laid back guy that's just enjoying the ride. And I love that I don't know what's going on. And I'm just going to be oblivious to the sport that I play, just show up and collect my paycheck.
Well, if I can couple this, because I already knew this guy was a zero. I'm talking about Anthony Rendon of the Angels. So Anthony Rendon of the Angels over the weekend made this comment at spring training. Baseball has never been a top priority for me. This is a job. I do this to make a living. My faith family come before this job. Okay. Yeah, great. Do you have to kind of share that with the world?
Right. You can have that belief, and I'm not going to fault anybody that puts their family above everything. That's kind of the way I wish we all were wired, right? But I know there are people that are going to put their job before anything else. I know that there are athletes that are going to put their performance above anything else, including their family. And that's part of what if you're going to call Jordan or Kobe or those guys miserable, that's part of what made them that, is that their family came second to competing. Their family came second to everything having to do with that juice.
Isn't that the price of greatness? Like, you have to have this imbalanced life. Like, every life coach will say balance, homework, life. But can you really be the top of your profession if you're not putting in the extra hours or doing the extra things?
That's the challenge. I mean, at some point, something falls through the cracks, right? I mean, hell, you could look at a guy like Andy Reid that we all hold in high regard. His home life is a mess. It's been a mess. Always been a mess.
You can't fix it. Your son passed.
Yeah.
The other is in jail.
Yeah.
And when his son passed, he came back 3 days after. Not that I'm judging that's him, but that's him. I can't imagine what that would be like.
Hearing news that the Vikings reportedly aren't willing to give Kirk Cousins a fully guaranteed contract, and oh boy, Justin Fields isn't following the Bears on Instagram anymore. I don't know, Gino. There's some real high drama now here this offseason. I wanted to take a moment to make some bold predictions, plant my flag on quarterback situations, who I think ends up where. Let's go ahead and hold me to this.
Okay. Yeah, keep it.
I'm not going to lie. I didn't put a ton of research into this, so I don't know numbers as far as cap situations and contract situations. Somebody could hear me say this and be like, "What are you talking about? That can't happen." Look, if we've learned anything about the NFL, is the things that we say can't happen sometimes do happen. I'll start with Justin Fields, and I think he's going to go to Atlanta. And it makes me shudder because that's the kind of spot where we could actually realize his potential with Bijan Robinson and Drake London and Kyle Pitts, young, dynamic, athletic guys with speed on that track. It's hard not to imagine a higher level of success for Justin Fields if he is an Atlanta Falcon. I don't think the Bears are going to pay him, dude. I just do not think they're going to pay him.
Well, I guess the question is, because in order for that to happen, Atlanta's not going to wait for Justin Fields. So where I was thinking, okay, this is going to be a draft day thing, it can't be. If Chicago cannot wait to the draft to deal Justin Fields, right? So what do you get? Are they getting a first-round pick for him?
I mean, that's the hope for any trade, right?
Right, but I don't. Is Atlanta desperate enough for a quarterback that is on the verge of getting paid?
There are reports out that they'll have a plan as to what they're going to do at quarterback here within the week. You had the president, Kevin Warren, heaping praise on Justin Fields, which may have been by design, or it may have been a complete miscommunication within the organization. Because let's face it, everybody knows Kevin Warren isn't a player personnel guy. He's a business guy. He's there to build a stadium.
Or he's pumping up the tires on his asset.
And that was a calculated quote to make Justin Fields appear more valuable than he actually is to the organization. I like Baker Mayfield in Minnesota because I assume that in Tampa, if they use the franchise tag, they would use it on Antoine Winfield Jr., which would make Mayfield free and clear to go to the highest bidder. And I actually think Viking fans would be excited about that prospect. Mayfield has double the playoff wins of Kirk Cousins. Why would you say no to that?
Okay, I believe Kirk Cousins like adios. I only want guaranteed money. Okay, we've seen this before, but if you're Minnesota, aren't you spinning your wheels if you're the Vikings by doing this?
Minnesota has no reason to give him guaranteed money. They're done.
No, they're done.
That said, I like Kirk Cousins in Denver. Give me Kirk Cousins in Denver because they're going to need someone competent for the next couple of years while they look for and develop their next franchise quarterback under Sean Payton. If and when Cousins realizes that he can't command the kind of market that he's used to, he'll settle for a deal with the Broncos, an established head coach. Either that or you'll see the Broncos go with a discounted Gardner Minshew as their quarterback for a fraction of the cost next year. They're going to deal with a lot of dead money when they move on from Russell Wilson. And that leads me to Russ. Why not send Russ to Tampa where, I know people want to put him in Pittsburgh. Russell Wilson in Pittsburgh just doesn't feel like a Pittsburgh kind of move. We know the kind of guy Wilson is. We know the kind of coach Tomlin is. It's just un-Steeler-like for them to make a move like that. And I would expect them to stubbornly trot out Kenny Pickett again at quarterback week 1. You could talk about a quarterback competition in camp. It's still going to be Pickett's team week 1 in Pittsburgh when they start the season because that's the way Pittsburgh does things. Tampa will have a need, and he can make his final stop there in Tampa before retiring and go in God's waiting room there in Florida. Or he just might hang it up after Denver cuts him altogether.
So why wouldn't? And again, I just like for the sake of this, if I had to pick, if that was the way you were going to just kind of disperse the veteran quarterbacks, Daniel Jeremiah thinks differently. Oh, he does have.
I'm sure he's right.
No, but like he has the Falcons going with a quarterback, J.J. McCarthy, and you realize, wait a second, they're in a position to draft. They got it wrong here, obviously, before.
Yeah.
So the question is, if you're any team that wants Justin Fields, do you think you could do better in the draft than Justin Fields? If the answer is I'm not sure, well, then the thing that breaks all ties is, well, why do we want to pay Justin Fields in 2 years when we can go get this quarterback from Michigan and have him under team control? Danger, that is sexy. If you have all this talent around a young quarterback and you don't have to pay that quarterback, I don't think there's going to be this market for Justin Fields. I just don't.
I don't think Justin Fields wants to be in Chicago. I'll just throw that out there as well.
I think that's
I'm just going to throw that out. I don't think he wants to be there anymore. And I'm pretty sure he's not going to go to Vegas where his old offensive coordinator is now. Anybody that says Fields to the Raiders, Fields kind of eviscerated Luke Getsy last year when he was his OC in Chicago and said he's coaching him too much. So I don't see that those two reuniting in the desert.
Well, there's the team. I figure Washington with the new owner, they'll draft a quarterback in number 2.
Unless they end up trading up to number 1. Yeah.
But what about the team at 3? You left New England.
No, New England, yeah.
Will New England be involved in any? Because I could see Kirk Cousins in New England. That would.
You know who's going to start at quarterback for New England next year?
Bailey Zappi.
Jacoby Brissett. Welcome back. Week 1 starter, Jacoby Brissett.
Add that to the list.
Add it to the list. Let's get to Amerks head coach Seth Appert. Wild weekend for the team and a wild week ahead as well. We'll talk all things Amerks hockey with Rochester Americans head coach Seth Appert next on The Fan.
You're listening to the Sports Bar. update.
Some Bills news from the outside. Wide receiver Gabe Davis posting an 8-minute highlight reel today on Instagram, seemingly to say goodbye to the Buffalo Bills fan base. To the Rochester Americans, who are coming off a win in Toronto, 52 saves from goaltender Devin Levi. The Amerks back home tomorrow night against Belleville. We'll talk to head coach Seth Appert coming up next year in the Sports Bar. Syracuse basketball, they need wins to enter the postseason. The Orange tonight need to pick up one. They're at NC State. Tonight here on The Fan, we've got St. John Fisher basketball. It's tournament time, the opening round of the Empire 8, as the Cardinals are home against Houghton. Nick Colville will have your coverage beginning at 6 p.m. Sports is brought to you by GetMyPerks.com. Today, save half off to Lasertron in Henrietta. For this and other great deals, log on to GetMyPerks.com today. Gene Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Top Shelf Sports Talk. You're hanging out in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Taken away by the Amateurs. Davies moving in on goal. Backhander. He scores! Davies working off the left wing boards. Pulls it out in front. Backhander inside the back post. And the Amerks win it in overtime.
Music to our ears as the Amerks come away with the win over the Marlies yesterday afternoon in Toronto. And it's the easy thing to discuss because it's the big headline from the game. We're joined by Rochester Americans head coach Seth Appert. I mean, is Devin okay? I'm worried about him. How much time did he spend in the ice bath afterwards? I mean, over 50 saves in a winning effort, Seth. How are you and how are your team holding up after this weekend?
We're good. Thanks, guys. Good to be on. It was obviously a heck of a win. You're on the back end of a 4-6, with travel into an afternoon game, right? So it's I really liked how we played for the first 50 minutes. 50 minutes in, they were out shooting us, but the quality chances were basically dead even. That most of their shots were perimeter, and we did a really good job defensively of clearing rebounds for Devin. The last 10, we were hanging on a little bit, and obviously Devin made some big saves in that last 10 in overtime. And then Jeremy Davies just made a spectacular play to win the game for us.
Yeah, I mean, what does it say about your team, Seth, that was only 21 hours roughly after you got off the ice? Now, Sunday didn't go like you had planned against Utica, so that tight turnaround there to get at least that, for the first 50 minutes, as you mentioned, that energy on Monday afternoon.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, we knew, and we're treating this like a 7-game playoff series, and you're not going to be, as the series goes on, you're not going to have as much energy. You're going to be tired. Guys are going to be beat up. We don't have a lot of, defensemen right now. So a lot of the D are playing a ton of minutes right now. So, the biggest thing going into that Toronto game is we need to play smart. We talked about, making sure that we played a smart game, that we defended the interior, that we kept them on the perimeter, and that we cleared rebounds and kept their defensemen home to box out and clear rebounds. So, that's what you need to do. You're not always going to feel your best. You're not always going to be fresh and be able to play a great game. We were unbelievable in Utica last Wednesday. We played a good game against Wilkes on Friday. And you're just not going to always have that. But you got to find ways to win games on nights that you don't have your best and you're a little bit tired.
Talk to me a little bit more about the mindset there. You're saying we're treating this as a 7-game series. We talked about it last week. 7 games over the course of 11 days, and that 7 games will wrap on Saturday when you guys take a trip to a team you're familiar with from last year in the postseason in Hershey. So I'm curious about the upcoming games, but just overall the idea that we're treating this stretch of games here in the middle of the season as a 7-game series, knowing that you have postseason aspirations, obviously.
Well, yeah, a couple things. One is that it's the grind type of time of the year, and this is a grueling stretch with 7 and 11 and travel. So, you tried as a coach to find ways to get the guys excited, to get them energized, to look at it as a challenge and an exciting opportunity instead of, oh man, we got 7 games in 11 days. So that's part of it. It's a little piece of mental warfare. And then the other part is learning and practicing, so to speak, for you if we do earn our right to the playoffs, how to handle playoffs and the volume of games, how fast the games come, and how you need to get better in that stretch of games. But also you can't dwell on losses and you can't over-celebrate wins. In the playoffs, the next game's coming very quick usually, and you just need to learn from what just happened and move on and get on to the next game. We didn't play as good as we'd like on Sunday against Utica. We let that game get away from us in the third period of a game I thought we should have won. And, okay, let's learn one good piece of information we can take away from that game, and let's move on to Toronto.
We're talking to Amherst head coach Seth Appert. Amherst are home Wednesday night and Friday night, for that matter, against Belleville. All right. It's been like a while since we talked, Seth. Friday night, you get the win over the Penguins. However, in that game, Yuri Kulik going down. So, two-part questions. Get your answer, then the follow-up will come. So, the question is here, Kulik, what's his status right now, and what did you see on that hit?
Kulik is fine. He'll likely play this weekend. I don't think he'll play tomorrow. He's 19 years old. We're going to be extra cautious bringing a player back from an injury. That's as big of a prospect as he is at the age he's at, right? So, but he's fine. He feels great, and I think he probably feels like he can play. We'll see about tomorrow, but like I said, likely for the weekend. The hit was dirty. He did a good job of Joshua did a good job of making it look unintentional and making it look like that he fell down because he was surprised, which was a complete dive. But it's the exact same spot he just scored from. And it was an intentional play.
So, Seth, I thought what you said after that game, I just wanted to follow up on that because someone asked you, hey, are you going to send that into the league? And you were like, does it even matter? I mean, was that? Can you expand on that? I don't want to get you in trouble, Seth, but if it's a hit to the head, is the league doing enough to protect their own in that regard?
I think our league does a really good job. Our refs have a hard job. There's one of the hardest jobs in the world is to officiate a hockey game. The pace of our games now, how fast the players move, how fast the puck moves. They have a really demanding job, and I got a ton of respect for our officials. I think at times, organizationally and myself might have a different opinion of how to protect our players and hits from behind and things like that. But that's difference of opinion, and I respect our league and I respect our officials, even though I disagree with them at times.
Seth, we got a team that's looking up at you in the standings here in the North Division coming in on Wednesday and on Friday. Knowing what we know about Belleville, what do we expect here the next couple of games for your team?
Violence.
Yes.
It's the games against Belleville are violent. It was funny. I was just talking to Jack Quinn today, catching up with him on his rehab and just seeing how he's doing. And he was talking about that. He's like, "Oh, Belleville. Well, you're going to get cross-checked on the way to the net 17 times if you want to try to score a goal." So they're a big, heavy, physical team. They're a bit of an older team. Their D-core is really good. They have a really, really good D-core. Larson's played probably 200 NHL games. Gannett's played in the NHL already. Lassie Thompson's a first-rounder. Cleven's already played in the NHL as a young kid. He's mean and physical. And so, their forward group is solid with good veteran players. And then their D-core, like I said, is very, very good. And then they have an elite goaltender. So, it's going to be two really, really demanding games. They're fun tests when you get to play Belleville.
Seth, I just want to tip my cap to you and everybody in that front office because, coming out of the pandemic or even before the pandemic, we're just seeing crowds. You had 8,000 on Sunday. This feels like, and we've seen this in the postseason, but now this is carried over to the regular season here. And with school being out this week, it's not going to feel like a normal Wednesday night. At least that's what I'm hoping tomorrow night that people will come out for you.
That'd be awesome. That would be outstanding. I appreciate the fan base that we have. It has been really good. We've been consistently on the weekends, in the 65 to 8,000 range. And credit to our fans, but credit to our guys as well. With the seasons we've had the last 2 years, the playoff runs, that we've earned our fans, trust back. We've earned their attendance back, and we appreciate them coming. So hopefully we'll have a bigger than normal Wednesday, and then a real raucous crowd on Friday night.
Seth, we know you're not going to look past Belleville here, your next couple of opponents, but you have Hershey coming up on Saturday, and we know what the Bears are about given what we saw last year in the postseason. What kind of a measuring stick is that this weekend?
Well, yeah, they're on a historic run this year. I mean, they have a chance to break records in the American League for best record and things like that. So, they're like last year. They're old. They're big. They're physical. They have elite American League players. And then they got two stud goaltenders. They got Shepard, who obviously won the Calder Cup last year and was a stud for them. I think he's at 92%, and they got Stevenson, a young prospect, who's at, I think, 93%. So, they're loaded. So this is going to be a stiff test this week. You got 3 games against heavy, older, physical teams with elite goaltending. So it's going to be a great test for us.
Yeah, Seth, also Friday night coming up, too. It's Hall of Fame night. And we've talked about this before. I mean, I don't think there's another minor league hockey team in North America with a history and a tradition as the Amerks. You realize, wait a second, Roy Fitzpatrick is in the Hall of Fame? Good. Let's get him in. Have you ever crossed paths with Rory?
It's funny, just today. I met him for the first time today. He was in, I think, getting some details of the event. And I stopped back in the office and got a chance to meet him, got a chance to show him around, the updated locker room settings and things like that. He's going to come and speak to our team Friday afternoon before the game. Being a legendary Amerk, but then also from Rochester, I mean, it's a really unique perspective that he'll get to share with our guys and what this team means to the community and what it meant to put that jersey on. So really excited, obviously extremely well-deserved honor, and really excited for Friday night to recognize what a great job he did in that jersey.
And we'll have Rory on with us tomorrow afternoon in the sports bar to talk more about that Hall of Fame night coming up here Friday night at Blue Cross Arena as the Amerks take on Belleville. Belleville tomorrow night at the arena. Belleville Friday night at the arena. Hershey Saturday night in Hershey. All of the action on your proud home of Amerks hockey. 95.7 The Fan. Amerks head coach Seth Appert always joining us Tuesdays at this time. And really appreciate the time as always, Seth. Good luck this week.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Seth.
Look, that big win against Toronto. Levi on his head. These games coming up here are, if it's a 7-game series, if you're treating it as a 7-game series, those 7 games in 11 days, could it go down to that game 7 at Hershey where you're trying to get over on the Bears to come out ahead with the 4 wins out of 7 games? I'd like to think that they take care of Belleville here the next couple of games here at Blue Cross Arena.
Yeah, and you mentioned Levi. That was the story yesterday. They don't win that game, 52 saves. And what I've been saying all along here, going into this stretch, could the Amerks just simply maintain their position? And by beating Toronto yesterday, the answer is yes. They are remain in third place here, even though they're in this grueling stretch. Look, that loss to Utica Sunday, not good, giving up 7 goals, on Kids Day there. But you're 2 up on Toronto, but you're only 3 up on Belleville. So that's how tight things are. So this is the opportunity, all right, let's create a little bit of space here. If you sweep Belleville, all right, then you're up 7 on that team. So that, to me, the idea that you don't want to be facing the first place team. You don't want to be in that playing round. It's not too early to talk about these sort of things. And then also kind of a hat tip to you, the Rochester sports fan, because I want to go back also to RIT on Saturday night. Sold out, 4,200.
Yeah.
And people are calling me. I'm sorry, I can't help you. I don't have any tickets left. It's sold out. 4,200, and then the next afternoon you get 8,000 plus at the Blue. Now, having the kids off, having it be a holiday weekend, sure, that's a big factor. But maybe people are kind of realizing, hey, you know what? Maybe it's not the healthiest thing just to sit at home with the kids and look at the phone all day. Here, let's get up and get out and do something.
I love that. Absolutely right. And for the value that it presents, you can't do better than an Amerks game or an RIT Tigers game. It's just so much fun. It's a great atmosphere. It's a great product. I mean, it's just a lot of fun. So, yeah, you give a hat tip to the Fan. I love that we've got more people up and active. Unplug. Just unplug a little bit. Get out there. I told you how Saturday night we were celebrating Nikki G, and one of our neighbors, Mike, the Hammer, he came by. He was a little bit late. I was like, I was at the RIT game. I'm like, how'd it go? Well, they lost, but it was unbelievable. It was sold out. We hadn't been in a couple of years. What an unbelievable atmosphere. It was just raving about the atmosphere at the Policini Center. And, college hockey has that. And, of course, the Amerks have that when they're at home at Blue Cross Arena as well. And to think that, no school this week for those of us that didn't go south for the week or didn't go visit Mickey Mouse for the week, you've got plenty of opportunity, whether it's Wednesday night or Friday night or both, to see a really good hockey team in action. Seth Appert's Rochester Americans.
Well, I think what happened to our town was that we were always, going back 20 years, minor league capital of America. We just got so bloated. It was almost like too many teams, too much going on. Well, now it feels like we have the right balance here, and it feels like people are finding out, hey, this is actually fun to go to a game.
For sure. Really appreciate Seth Appert joining us. And I'm really proud of us, too, Gino. We've made it an hour and 45 minutes into the show without saying the S word. We haven't said the S word.
No, we're not talking about a swear word either.
You don't want me to say anything. I don't want to say anything because I don't want to go dark. I don't want to go dark this afternoon. It's just gotten so bad. I mean, when I hear him say, I was talking to Jack Quinn, my first thought is, can he get better quicker? Can we get him back sooner? What does he need?
Well, they're still learning. Give them a break. They're still learning. Oh, let's keep learning.
Yeah. All right, we got to take a break. We're going to come back with we'll get you caught up on what's going on around the NFL. A couple of different notes and headlines to deal with here, and happy hour on the way as well. Plenty of time for your calls if you want to join us. That number is 866-4FAN, 585-866-4326 in the Sports Bar.
You're listening to the Sports Bar. The Fan, Rochester.
Next week, is it next week is the
NFL Combine.
The Combine's next week, bro, Sleevage.
And we'll be rocking and rolling and throwing out dozens of prospect names and talking position groups and catching up with important NFL movers and shakers, including head coach Sean McDermott and general manager Brandon Beane, as those two are usually kind enough to join us each and every year out there at the Combine.
I would love that. One Bills Live, Chris Brown, Steve Tasker. They'll be in Indianapolis next week for the NFL Scouting Combine. You're back in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia. Glad you're with us this afternoon. Appreciate it. It's a day that we've spent talking about Gabe Davis and this video that he posted here on social media. It's like an 8-minute long hype piece. By the way, 8 minutes? Gabe.
Yeah.
Too long. We got to trim it down. Who's editing it down? You get your daughter to edit it down? What are we doing here? We got to get it down to 30 seconds, more easily digestible.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's done to kind of placate the player, too. Who wouldn't love watching 8 minutes of themselves? We'll dive into that in happy hour. I wanted to pass this along because you had an interesting take kind of laying out the quarterbacks here. If you can kind of reset here, because I want to give you why Vegas might think you're wrong here, Danger.
Okay, so Vegas has set their odds for who lands where. Is that what you're going?
Russell Wilson. You have Russell Wilson going to Tampa.
I said Tampa just because of the way the dominoes fall, that they might be a team where they're desperate. They're like, okay. Again, I also think there's a very real chance Russell Wilson just doesn't play next year, that he hangs it up.
That should be an option here. When I'm looking at it, I'd have to dig into this deeper, but they're just giving me 6 teams. Tampa is not one of them. Do you want to take a guess who the favorite is for Russell Wilson?
Pittsburgh.
Yep. -110, which seems silly to me because, like you mentioned, that doesn't seem like a fit. Like Russell Wilson and Sean Payton, we knew that wasn't going to be a fit, but Sean Payton came along afterward. Like, I can't see Mike Tomlin saying, that's the guy I want, Russell Wilson. So the other odds, staying in Denver actually would be +320, which no. Atlanta +450, Patriots +450, Raiders +600, Vikings +1,000. Out of those teams, that does feel a little Raider-esque.
Yes, and we're learning about Pierce, the kind of coach he is.
Well, maybe not.
But I think to myself, like, Pierce probably wants to roll with the guy that they brought. Like Aiden might be their guy. I as scary as that is, like, that might be their guy.
Telesco's the GM there, remember? Like, he comes over from the Chargers. So does he have this respect for Russell Wilson? I wouldn't have any idea either way. I just find, and again, of course, in New York State, we can't bet on this. This is just for, entertainment purposes only when it comes to things that we can't control. You can only bet on games. You can't bet on future teams here.
Yeah. If Aiden O'Connell was there, I mean, let's face it, Aiden O'Connell and Pierce kind of like elevated and rose last season simultaneously. It's almost as if they're married. I would imagine that Pierce doesn't want to shatter the confidence of his young quarterback and rolls with Aiden O'Connell. As unsavory as that might appear, it's the same thing that I feel with Pittsburgh. Like, I feel like Pittsburgh, for all the talk of we're going to bring in somebody to compete with Kenny Pickett in the preseason, yeah, you might do that, but I don't think it's going to be Russell Wilson. I would say it'd be more like a guy that's a perennial backup that could go in there and compete with Kenny Pickett, and then Kenny Pickett is eventually your week 1 starter. They invested a first-round pick in Kenny Pickett. They're not going to punt. That would be so un-Steeler-like for them to punt on a guy that they drafted in the first round at quarterback. It just doesn't feel like a move that they make.
10 Cherry Hills Park Drive in Colorado has gone up for sale for $25 million. That happened on Friday.
Is that the house that has 18 bathrooms?
Exactly. What was the joke there?
More bathrooms than touchdown passes. He has more bathrooms in his home than he had touchdown passes his first year in Denver. Yeah, it didn't go well. And Denver's looking down the barrel of a massive, massive dead cap hit next season. So they're going to look for whatever value they can find. And that might mean just rolling with Jarrett Stidham. But if you find that Kirk Cousins is available and you can get him cheap, or I would even say Gardner Minshew. Like Gardner Minshew played well enough. And you know how Sean Payton is, man. That guy is so arrogant. He probably believes there isn't a single quarterback out there that he can't have success with if they buy into what he is trying to do. He did it with Drew Brees, and he's just looking for his next guy. Wouldn't it be a story if Gardner Minshew went to Denver and made like nothing to be their starting quarterback just for the opportunity, and Peyton got that team into the postseason for the first time since their Super Bowl run?
I don't see, like, Russell Wilson, can we just say, unpopular take, he wasn't bad for Denver last year. He really wasn't. I thought that actually the Broncos...
They beat the Bills.
Exceeded expectations.
And the way they beat the Bills, look, they don't win that game if Russ doesn't make an amazing throw, if Sutton doesn't make an amazing catch, if Russell doesn't scramble at timely points of that game. He made all the plays he needed to make in that game. I mean, we saw it firsthand. I don't think he was bad either. I just think Sean Payton hates the guy. Hates the guy with the passion of 1,000 suns. Hates the guy.
Stop kissing babies. Stop worrying about Russell Inc.
Yeah. And, you know, there are so many alphas. There are only so many alphas that one team can handle. And in that instance, it's like, okay, Sean Payton's putting his foot down. This is his team. It's not going to be Russ's team. You're going to do things my way, like it or not. It's crazy to see that it's gotten as sour as it's gotten as quickly as it got. But they're going to be in such bad shape with all that dead cap money that they have to look at the best value possible at that position. And it might just be Stidham. But I think it'd be fun if it was a guy like Cousins, because Cousins doesn't get his guaranteed money from Minnesota. What kind of guaranteed money could he get from Denver, if any? And it might just end up being a guy like Stidham, or a guy like Gardner Minshew might be an upgrade from Jarrett Stidham. We'll come back with Happy Hour next, and we'll talk a little bit more about this Gabe Davis video. Matt Perino joined us in the 3 o'clock hour, and we'll also discuss what some of these wide receiver options could be, and would you be shocked? Well, wait until you hear, I should say, what Spot Track believes Gabe Davis can fetch in the open market, what his value is as a free agent wide receiver.
I'm just curious, like this video, why? Why today? Why the timing today?
Oh, I'm sure that there was a conversation had, or
right,
there was
there's something spurned this today.
Yeah, that you heard or you found out, like this is what it's going to be.
People didn't do this on Saturday night. They planted this boom on Monday morning to get everybody. So there's some strategy behind this.
For sure. Your calls are always welcome. Pull up a stool. 585-866-4FAN, 866-4326. Happy hour next.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia. And streaming online and in the Odyssey app at The Fan Rochester. The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Buffalo Bills wide receiver Gabe Davis posting an 8-minute highlight reel today on Instagram, seemingly to say goodbye to the Buffalo Bills fan base. Davis to become a free agent next month. Rochester Americans coming off a 52-save performance by goaltender Devin Levi. They get the Monday afternoon win in Toronto. They're back home tomorrow night against Belleville. Tonight, Syracuse basketball in need of wins if they want to make a postseason tournament. The Orange playing at NC State. Tonight, we've got St. John Fisher basketball. The Cardinals in the opening round of the Empire 8 tournament. The men taking on Houghton. Nick Coble will have your coverage beginning at 6 o'clock. Sports is brought to you by GetMyPerks.com. Today, save half off to any gaming or entertainment package at Lasertron. In Henrietta, for this and other great deals, log on to GetMyPerks.com today. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
Justin Fields supposedly unfollowing the Bears on Instagram was a giant.
Oh, who cares?
Patriots special teamer Matthew Slater announced his retirement.
Mike Danger.
Welcome to the Sports Bar. Jennifer Coolidge cut the
Gene Battaglia.
Talking some Sabres hockey.
Luukkonen got it, but not enough, and Terry has put Anaheim back on top at 4-3.
Taken away by the Amateurs. Davies moving in on goal. Backhander. He scores! Davies pulls it out in front. Backhander inside the back post. And the Amerks win it in overtime.
The Amerks face 53 shots. Devin Levi stops 52 of them.
I've never been that great with accepting, praise.
The Nets cannibalizing their head coach. Brooklyn firing Jock Vaughn.
This has been the most unenjoyable experience I've had since I've been coaching.
A massive brawl broke out during the handshake line.
Daytona 500 still brought the drama on Monday. William Byron, the winner for the first time in his career.
95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
It is happy hour. Welcome back into the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia. Glad you're listening along locally at 95.7 FM, AM 950. We've got the stream up. You can watch the Sports Bar on a YouTube page at The Fan Rochester, also streaming on Twitch at The Fan Rochester, and we sound our best in the free-to-download Odyssey app. Hope everybody enjoyed what I think most of us did, a 3-day holiday weekend. I don't know about you, Gene, but I spent a lot of my day yesterday just celebrating presidents.
Yeah.
President's
right.
Day is like, here you go, just have a day. Like, does anybody celebrate their favorite president on President's Day?
Like that's the one thing I think Canada has better. Like they call it Family Day. Family Day.
You can call it Family Day here. I'd be okay with that. Or do we want to continue to call it President's Day? Do you have a favorite? Who's your favorite?
I would probably say John Adams, number 2. Fantastic series on HBO. Go watch it.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I'm going Lincoln. Land of Lincoln. Illinois guy, Chicago. It's where I was born. I'll go Lincoln. Has a pretty decent history, right?
I think I've heard of him. Yeah.
Yeah. So after we've celebrated our presidents, we get back at it today, and this drops in the morning. Oh, Gabe Davis saying essentially a farewell.
Yeah, by design here, Danger, because this farewell on a Monday afternoon. First of all, the timing of this, okay, we're still weeks away from the legal tampering portion, but don't kid yourself. There's going to be conversations with GMs in Indianapolis. It's like the annual NFL convention. Do you really need GMs and decision makers out in Indianapolis to watch the guys in shorts running around when you could just kind of log on and do that yourself? No, you do. You're out there to interview these guys, get the medicals, but you're also talking to other agents. And obviously, Danger, his people have put out feelers and understood. The Bills have probably said to this point, I think this is fair to say, Gabe, we'd like to have you back. Here's the offer. Go test the market. And when you look at the market, when you look at what Spot Track says that what Gabe Davis should be making, it's kind of understandable why Gabe Davis and his people were taking like a preemptive strike today saying, hey, you know what? We're going to go play elsewhere coming up next season.
Spot Track has Gabe Davis's calculated market value at $13.6 million per year on average. 13.6 average annual salary. And I'm telling you, there's a team that will pay that or more for Gabe Davis. Because it's a wide receiver league. You need guys like Gabe Davis on your roster. We see the guy and we think, we take the good with the bad. We have I have so many memories of just unbelievable catches, toe drags on the sideline, balls that he caught from Josh Allen that most people wouldn't be able to haul in. And then you also have memories of Gabe Davis getting the dropsies and not getting open and not having a real diversified skill set when it comes to his route running ability. Great great blocker in the run game, probably his biggest strength. He heads to free agency, and all this really tells me today is that they have a pretty good idea of what the Bills would be able to offer him, if anything, and it's nowhere near what he's going to command on the open market.
Well, I mean, and again, some of these things that his people put out, I mean, you could tell a story in many different directions by using numbers. And here's one of the slides. Like at the end, there's all these credits. One of them being 2020 to 2022, 26 touchdowns, most touchdowns ever in first 3 seasons for a day 3 drafted wide receiver. Past Tyreek Hill, Kansas City with 25. Okay, you go back to the playoffs, sure, and a lot of that actually skews. This is the one that I find interesting, Danger. 2020 to 2023. Wide receivers averaging 800 receiving yards, 800 plus, 8 touchdowns in 17 games per season. You have CeeDee Lamb, DK Metcalf, Mike Evans, Diggs, Hill, and Gabe Davis. Far and away the fewest targets, and this is the point they're trying to show you, is where Stephon Diggs had 721 targets to reach those numbers. Gabe Davis had 336. There's a flaw here, and the flaw is this. Would you go out and pay for 800 yards receiving? No, you wouldn't. I mean, credit 17 games per season, not missing a game in 4 years, and that's why the field gets weeded out here.
I also think they have to add in the postseason numbers. Without the postseason numbers, you're not touting the same statistics for Gabe Davis. Because his average in the regular season, his average yards per game is just 42, just under 43 yards per game during the regular season. His total over the course of his 4 seasons in Buffalo, total receiving yards, 2,730. Regular season.
Yeah, that's 731 yards a season.
Right. So you have to get those postseason numbers in there. That Kansas City game is the one, right? That's the game.
That's the frustrating part. Because you see that, and you know that Diggs, and we've talked a lot about Diggs and the reasons why his production slipped, but Diggs was still commanding attention. So why weren't there more big pop-off games? It would happen. You saw it, and then it would disappear. Also, you have to kind of mention that it was Khalil Shakir kind of coming along down the stretch, and that was kind of Josh Allen's number 2 wide receiver target when it mattered most. When we talked to Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard, earlier today, I just simply asked him the question, wait a second, if the Bills are trying to make this decision here, is Josh Allen reaching that part of his career where he's going to weigh in and ask for things in terms of player personnel? I mean, to the extreme, you saw Brady bring people down to Tampa. You saw Aaron Rodgers bringing his peeps in with the Jets. Can Josh Allen throw his weight around? When Perino said was like, hey, hold on. We've been through this before. Like, you had the Bills letting go a guy he was very close with in Cole Beasley, and Josh came back and he said the company line stuff. So I don't anticipate Josh Allen just to say, hey, look, Gabe Davis, great blocker. I want him back this year. I think the question is, like, what's next year for the Buffalo Bills? Like, can you replace that production knowing you have, A, these salary cap challenges, and B, well, you want one of those top 4 wide receivers. They ain't going to be there more than likely when the Bills actually select. You'd have to move up in the draft.
I think that Gabe Davis, for the 4 years that he was here, did what he was supposed to do, which was provide value for a team that knew they were going to be investing in other areas of the field. They don't want to overextend themselves in terms of what they're paying their wide receiving room. They've already done that with Steph Diggs. So whatever it is you decide to do in terms of the return on investment, the best course is probably the draft. It is probably to get a guy, and even if it's not in the first round, but get a guy that right away can get in there and take over some of the production that you're losing from Gabe Davis. You still have cost control with Shakir, and you know what Diggs counts against the cap. So can you get somebody that is as good, if not greater value than Gabe Davis, which is going to be a hard thing to do? I mean, we're talking about a fourth rounder here. So can you get somebody to come in, a second, a third round wide receiver that can be as productive as Gabe Davis was during his time here in Buffalo? And Gabe Davis's rookie year, 37 yards per game. Just under 600 receiving yards, regular season. Can you get more than that? Can you get 700, 800 receiving yards out of a rookie wide receiver?
Yeah, I mean, part of this too, and when we kind of examine Brandon Beane's draft strategy, this is always the one that will kind of point to that in his tenure, he has drafted 2 running backs in the 3rd round, 1 running back in the 2nd round being James Cook. He's never drafted a first-round wide receiver. Now, you can get back to that in a second. Nor a second-round wide receiver, nor a 3rd round. And only 1 in the 4th, that being Gabe Davis. Here is the list, courtesy of Matt Beauvais. Khalil Shakir was a 5th-rounder. Justin Shorter's a 5th-rounder. Shorter's the wild card, going into this year. 3 guys in the 6th round. 2018, Ray McLeod in the league. 2020, Isaiah Hodgins. Look, he's in the league too. Marquez Stevenson flamed out 2021. And then you had a 7th-round flyer in Austin Prohl that never made the team. Yeah, maybe what we're seeing now on this Bills depth chart here that you're pinning your hopes on a Justin Shorter. Like, you should have, at some point taken another wide receiver. Now, 2 things you could say. Well, they drafted wide receiver essentially last year. Sure. I'm making this prediction that Dalton Kincaid will get to 1,000 yards next year, and that's going to help soften the blow a little bit. The other thing, too, is people will point to Steph Diggs being a first-round wide receiver, and yeah, you can kind of say that you use that asset to get what you needed.
That's what Brandon Beane would say. Brandon Beane would say, we did invest a first-round pick in a wide receiver. His name was Steph Diggs. We traded our first-round pick to get him from Minnesota, and it worked out well. And I think that's the plan here, is that they're going to find another wide receiver in the draft, somebody that can come in, contribute day one, and give you, at minimum, what you got out of Gabe Davis this last season, which, again, during the regular season, was just under 750 yards. I don't think it's too out of the realm of possibility to believe that you can get that, even if you don't go first round with a wide receiver, even if you wait until the 2nd or 3rd round for a wide receiver. As long as it's your guy, as long as you know that that's a guy that fits what Joe Brady wants out of this offense, a guy that can get that separation and find himself open for Allen to hit. Gabe Davis, as we've discussed, and guys like Chris Trapasso who break down the film have said, he's kind of like a one-trick pony. He's a straight-line guy. And his rookie year, you saw him make some remarkable catches, find himself open, and Allen put the ball in places that only Davis could come down with it. Davis is the guy that I would say, more than anybody, Josh Allen has made money for. He's made Gabe Davis more than what Gabe Davis probably would be in the NFL. And if a team is out there saying, you know what, Gabe Davis is somebody that we want to invest $13, $14 million a year on, I would prepare for that team to be a little disappointed in what you get out of Gabe Davis. I hope I'm wrong, because we all like Gabe Davis, and he was great during his time here for the most part. But if you're expecting him to be a 1, you're going to pay him $13 to $14 million in the hopes that you get that kind of production. It's a pretty drastic uptick in production that you're going to be looking at. You're going to want that guy to be a 1,000-yard receiver, and he's never been that.
Yeah, I can almost hear people saying, oh, come on. Teams are smarter than that, Mike Danger. Who's going to do that?
No way.
Well, there is a top end to this, but that top end is kind of old. Mike Evans, that's going to be the guy to point to. And I'm a Mike Evans believer. If he was out and affordable, I would bring him in, but got to know he's 30. OBJ's 31. Time flies, doesn't it? Like Curtis Samuel. Is Gabe Davis better than Curtis Samuel? I would say no. And Curtis Samuel is 28. There's going to be receivers that are ahead here, and that I could see Gabe Davis getting less than the 13, but what are the Bills offering here?
Well, let me ask you this. Let's view it through the lens of what teams could afford to spend $13 to $14 million on Gabe Davis. And one of those teams, are you ready to see Gabe Davis twice a year when he comes back as a New England Patriot?
Would that scare anybody? They don't have a quarterback.
I don't think it would scare anybody.
No.
But they're a team. What did they pay for Juju last year? $11 million? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that seems like the kind of move they would make, and they've got space, boy. They've got plenty of cap space to make that kind of move. Would Indianapolis be a team that would look to see Gabe Davis as, oh yeah, that's a guy that we're not going to pay Pittman, but we could pay Davis. They've got plenty of cap space. The Texans have cap space. The Bears have cap space. So there are teams, the Titans have cap space. There are teams that could pay Gabe Davis that kind of money. Tennessee makes a lot of sense. New England makes a lot of sense. Would you be scared? No, you're not scared because you know who's throwing him the football. Nobody. At least nobody that we know of. And Alex Van Pelt is the offensive coordinator. So you're not scared by that, but are you prepared for that? Because it could be New England. It could be New England. It could be Tennessee. It could be Washington. It could be any of these teams that have money to burn in terms of the cap space that's available to them. Do they view him as a one? Do they view him as somebody that can, live up to that number? Well, that's what makes it interesting. And a lot of times free agency, it's a crapshoot. You don't always get that return on investment.
Well, here's why I think letting Gabe Davis walk would be the answer. Let's kind of go into a world where Steph Diggs isn't available. One thing Steph Diggs has been, he's been available. He has been answered the bell, as has Davis, right? But say that you're looking at an extended period of time with Steph Diggs on the shelf. Is Gabe Davis ready to be your wide receiver one? Is Gabe Davis ready to be any team's wide receiver one? I think a lot of it's fool's gold with Davis here. So
I think free agency
is fool's
as
gold.
A whole is fool's gold. You want to hit where you hit. I mean, look, the Bills hit with McGovern last year, right? That was their big guy. That was their big signing. And they got it. They hit. Is anybody complaining about McGovern in his play on the offensive line? I mean, the offensive line was not the reason why the Bills lost games last year. They were consistent. They were good.
Well, that's why everybody's going to be focused on wide receiver. Do we want to say two? Because I don't know if Shakir's ready to be in that, but you have...
I'll just say it this way.
Yeah.
Shakir is not a two. Shakir is not a two. Sorry. Yeah. Shakir is not a two. Let's eliminate that from...
When did you become Italian talking with your hands like this? Shakir is not
absolutely
a two. Bang,
just
bang,
hit.
bang,
Well,
bang, yeah.
I mean, I could be like you and just... He's not. Can we just recognize that he's not a two and view him for what he is? He's a guy that if it's thrown his way, he's probably catching it. At best, maybe he's what Cole Beasley was in this, for Josh Allen. He's that security blanket, or a guy that you hope is going to continue to do what he did at the end of this year. But he's not a two. He's a fifth round wide receiver.
He's a good three.
Yes.
He's a very good three.
Yes.
If the Bills figure out wide receiver two with, can I say, one of the top 10 tight ends in the league, are we ready to say that with Dalton Kincaid?
Top 10?
Top 10.
Projected for 2024?
If you put it in fantasy terms, yeah, the answer is yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so, okay, top 10 tight end, top 5 quarterback, offensive line coming, everybody's intact on that offensive line. Steph Diggs still there. I mean, this Bills offense, if healthy, should win 11 to 12 games. Should. Everybody's coming back with the exception of Davis.
Yeah, I'm going to reserve that prediction. Yeah, I don't know that I see them.
You
as
sounded like the guy
12.
from Office Space.
Yeah,
I'm going to need you to.
I'm going to need for you to dial it back a little bit. I don't know, Gino. 12 wins.
That was very masterstrokian. Yeah, I was getting excited.
Yeah, but yeah, look, to your point, if that's the only piece of the offense that you're missing, I imagine you can find that piece. Not necessarily even in the first round of the NFL draft. You can find that piece in the second. You can find that piece in the third. I'm not saying they shouldn't draft a wide receiver in the first round. I don't think they will.
I don't think they will, because the guy you want to trade up for assets, and the depth on this team, folks, it's going to be stripped. Yeah, and it should be stripped. I mean, were you impressed with the special teams last year? No. So you're going to need linebackers and safeties and those sort of players there to replace the Tyler Matakaviches of the world. So don't give up extra draft picks to kind of move up. Fortify the back end of your round. Dare I say, act more like the Kansas City Chiefs, Mike Danger.
Well, you have 10 draft picks. It would be nice if you drafted 10 and 7 of them were contributing on game days. Right? If you're hitting 60, 70% with your draft class, I'd feel pretty good about the future beyond 2024. 2024, because of what they're carrying here, because of just how strapped they could be, might just be a year where it's like, guys, much like this year, it isn't going to be pretty. Let's just get the division. Let's win the division. And that might be as far as it goes.
Win the division. We're not the 1 seed, but here we are for the wild card round. We'll welcome in somebody else in the divisional round if that goes their way. Maybe you got to go on the road. The point is, they should be right where they were, which is 2 wins away from a Super Bowl next year because of the crappy division. Bills, anywhere, you're reading different estimates, anywhere between 52 and 55 million, they would be over the cap. The cap by most was 242. But we had this report from Mike Florio last week, who I'm always kind of leery of the anonymous source, right?
Saying closer to 250, right?
He's saying 250, which if you gave the Bills an extra $8 million, okay, then the Josh Allen restructure would take care of half of that. Then you tack on a Tre'Davious White release, you extend Rasul Douglas, and then maybe 1 or 2 extra painful decisions. But at least you're not doing anything rash, which doing rash things would be releasing a Mitch Morse or, hey, Steph Diggs, we're going to convert, we're going to restructure. No.
Right.
No, I like the Diggs contract, bad. Devon Miller contract, really, really bad.
Yeah, not great at all. Well, the good news is you have to imagine Brandon Beane is getting his ducks in a row and has a game plan for next week. The Combine, as we started this conversation, the Combine in Indianapolis, and next week we'll be talking to everybody that's there. It's you call it the NFL's annual convention. These guys will be getting together and talking and formulating their plans and getting their hooks into the prospects that they like and their representation, and also talking about free agents that are going to be available as well.
It's the one time a year where I think the way they do business is the way most of us would like to do business, right? We talked to Matt Perino earlier, like, what's it like there? Well, we go, a lot of people go out to drinks to this place and go out to this, and we hear about the steakhouse or whatever. It's the one time where everybody kind of lets their guard down a little bit, I think.
Yeah, have those conversations and chart your own course. Let's get to a round of shots next in the sports bar.
Yeah, the hockey team.
No, we don't have to. No. We don't have to.
Okay, we'll go through it quickly.
Can I say this? And I shouldn't be upset. It's pizza money. Shame on me. I thought they were going to win yesterday. I put my money where my mouth is. I said, you know what? Anaheim's bad.
It's Monday afternoon. Going to be a lot of kids in the arena.
Yeah, there'll be some energy. There'll be some vibe.
That's a West Coast team.
I like how they won in Minnesota. I like that that Yoki Haru get the overtime winner. There's got to be some momentum that carries from an overtime win when you came from behind and you scored with less than 30 seconds to go to force overtime and get the win. And there's got to be some momentum that carries. When will I learn? When will we all learn?
Dude, it's not happening this year.
No.
It's just not. We've got Syracuse basketball tonight.
Jeez, and they're like the Sabres of college basketball. The same thing.
Who said they would lose to Georgia Tech? I don't know. Me.
Nobody cares when
Nobody
you're right.
cares when I'm right. News today that, honestly, I don't think is good for the Rochester Red Wings and concerns their parent team. We'll go into that a little bit. And also, for anybody that thinks, hey, the Sabres, we just need a little more tough love. You need a coach. Well, there's actually one team in the NHL that did this with results. I'll explain.
All right, a round of shots on the way. And last call coming up before we close up shop at 6 and make way for St. John Fisher basketball. You can pull up a stool at 585-866-4FAN, 866-4326.
Update.
Buffalo Bills wide receiver Gabe Davis posting an 8-minute highlight reel on Instagram, seemingly to say goodbye to the Buffalo Bills fan base. The Amherst coming off an impressive win, 52 saves from Devin Levi. They're back home tomorrow night against Belleville. Belleville also the opponent coming up on Friday. Tonight at Syracuse basketball, the Orange in need of a win if they want to make the postseason. They play at NC State, 7 p.m. on ESPN2. Meanwhile, we've got St. John Fisher basketball tonight. It's the opening round of the Empire 8 tournament. The Cardinals home against Houghton. Nick Coble has your call beginning at 6 o'clock here on The Fan Rochester. Sports is brought to you by Get My Perks, where today you can save half off to Lasertron in Henrietta on any gaming package. For this and other great deals, log on to GetMyPerks.com today. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
The best local sports talk in the Flower City. One Bills Live in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia. Weekday afternoons on The Fan, Rochester.
Time for a round of shots. Do we have to say the S word? I've got my finger on the
delay,
on the dump button.
Okay, I won't say the S word. Anaheim, just facts. The Anaheim Ducks are the third worst team in the Western Conference. Yet the S lost both matchups this season to the Ducks. UPL facing only 15 shots on goal, but he let them 4 of them in the S's 4-3 loss. The S's were sloppy with the puck, giving it away 8 times, leading to 3 goals. This is despite, a lot of kids in the stands on the holiday.
We're being very safe right now. This is good. The FCC won't come after us for saying the S word.
The S's play in Montreal tonight, but for the S's, though, Danger, it's exciting. It's Father's Trip. A lot of fathers watching the S's practice today as they'll be going up to Quebec.
Oh, who cares?
That's where I'm at.
Oh, who cares?
Oh, it's Father's Day. Ugh.
Oh, who cares?
Win something. I'm tired of it. Everybody that follows this team, if you like, they're all everybody, all of them, hands in the air, like we're done.
Oh, who cares?
Here's where the disconnect for me is, because you have Granato talking about learning. You're paying people now on the team. You're not coaching the Amherst here, all right? You've made decisions.
You can't use the word development anymore.
You have made decisions to pay Darlene and Thompson and others, and you brought in these veteran defensemen, and all of it is not working. It's just a big schmozzle.
I just think it's nice job. That's a good.
Yeah, it means mess.
Good usage.
Yeah.
The staggering thing about all of this is that his extension hasn't even kicked in.
So what are we doing next year?
Right. Are we really thinking, for anybody that's like, why is this guy employed? Like, you want to feel something different? You're not going to feel anything different. Not this offseason.
I have not been to a game. And so Sunday they're home against Carolina. I'm thinking about it. All right, right now $30 the get-in price. It's probably going to go down lower.
Yeah.
It's if it gets one of the better teams in the NHL,
right.
yeah.
And you're going not because they're good. You're going because Carolina's fun. That's a good team. If all you do is a steady diet of this team, watch another NHL game and tell me how it goes. I watched Rangers Islanders from MetLife, 80,000 people for an outdoor game. It was a good game. Actually getting after it. You take away the sheen of everything with the outdoor game. The actual game itself, you play it anywhere, and that was a good game. It's a good product. They retired Yager's number in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Good game. Not the desired outcome on Yager night for the Penguins, but again, competitive teams, good game, playing with a sense of urgency. That's not what you're getting with a steady diet of this team.
This is not good news for Washington baseball fans. Also not good news for fans who want to see the Red Wings putting out a winning product. This is my opinion. Washington Nationals owner Mark Lerner has pulled his team off the market.
Whoa.
They are no longer for sale.
Really?
Lerner telling the Washington Post this wasn't the time and place for a sale, and that he wants to bring another ring to TC. Okay. Since the Nationals won in 2019, the team has finished in last place in the NL East every year since. On FanDuel, the Nats are right now plus 850. The finish with baseball's worst record in 2024. Only the A's, Rockies, and White Sox have worse odds.
So why is it not good news?
Because the franchise is a ghost ship. They let Bryce Harper walk out the door. They haven't done anything. The idea was that, okay, Lerner in 2021-22 is stripping everything to the nuts and letting the new owner come in and build everything up. Okay, we're waiting, and apparently whatever number that he wanted off of this, he has yet to receive. So to me, this is, you are in a major market running a peanut show there in terms of a payroll.
But he's now saying he's committed to getting another ring. If you believe what he's saying,
then
he's done it before.
Go sign a Cody Bellinger. Give the fans something to get excited about.
And maybe that's where it starts. But I would say that knowing that they're not selling the team puts them in a better place than them being, like we're describing here, a ghost ship where they're in limbo and you're trying to keep costs down so that the new owner sees even more value and makes the bid.
Well, and I'm not particularly impressed with their player development system because when we talked to Craig Hoffman, who does on Odyssey, he's our friend in Washington, does afternoons there. Like, hey, look, sorry, there's no help coming up. Like 2 summers ago, you had, 19 straight losses for the Red Wings?
Yeah, it was bad.
It was bad. Yeah, so like, who would be that guy that you're so excited to go see for the Rochester Red Wings this year? And well, I'm excited for, going to get a plate there or maybe fireworks or whatever it is they got going on.
Yeah.
LA Angel third baseman Anthony Rendon is getting roasted for comments he made at spring training. Quote, baseball has never been a top priority for me. This is a job. I do this to make a living. My faith, my family come first before this job. So if those things come before it, I'm leaving. The Angels gave Rendon a 7-year, $245 million contract before 2020. He's a former National, by the way.
Yeah, that's right.
Still 3 more years left in this deal. It might be the worst ROI in baseball history. He's had 20 home runs and 89 RBI his first 3 seasons combined. Last year ended in June with a wrist injury.
His teammate, at least Rendon can say, I won something.
So Mike Trout was given the opportunity to say, would he go somewhere else? And he keeps saying, let's make it work here. And he's getting killed for it, which I thought Maggie brought up a good point this morning on her station, Maggie and Perloff. That baseball, you want to be these guys, hey, he's a Hall of Famer, Danger. It doesn't, in football, you really need that championship. Heck, in most sports, you really need that championship. Baseball,
just about the numbers.
It's about the numbers. It's not relevant. Where Mike Trout, the numbers you accumulate out there with no pressure and the sunshine of Southern California and low expectations and a losing atmosphere. I understand that you're only up 1 every 9 times. I understand that. However, don't you want to win a championship and know what that actually feels like to be in a World Series?
That's why I say it, man. Like, I'm not saying he's a bad ball player. I'm saying he's not a winner. Mike Trout, not a winner. Great ball player. You just called him a Hall of Famer.
He is a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. Not a winner. Not in my Hall of Fame, pal.
Finally, what do you do if you have an extra day off in Vegas these days? Well, you could go to the Sphere and watch U2. The Nashville Predators play in Vegas this coming Saturday. So the players were granted permission to fly in a day early, and they're going to catch the show as a team bonding event. Well, after giving up 9 goals and a loss to Dallas over the weekend, Barry Trotz said, no, I don't think so.
I love
he canceled the outing. Oh, you paid for those tickets? Too bad. How did the Preds players respond in their next game? They actually won 5-2 against the team they're chasing the standings in St. Louis. Old-time hockey fans love this move.
Yeah, it's funny how you shake them up a little bit, give them a little wake-up call, and they respond that way. I don't know that it works for every player or every team, and every situation is different. But Barry Trotz has won, and he's won in Nashville, and he knows the organization well enough, and he has enough pull to be able to say, yeah, screw your off-site activity. That ain't happening.
So what would be the equivalent for the Sabres? Like, hey, we're planning this dad's trip to Montreal. Call the old man up and say, canceled. You can't lose at Anaheim.
I think that's not necessarily apples to apples. And the Sabres, if I'm not mistaken, are still the young...
Dump that.
Oh, sorry.
The S's.
Sorry, I didn't mean to say the S word. They are, I believe, still the youngest team in the league. So maybe this heavy-handed approach by Trotz can work when you've got veteran guys that will, support you and say, yeah, he's right. We don't deserve a day off to just go to a U2 show. I don't know why you'd want to go to a U2 show anyway.
Oh, stop. I know this take.
Every song sounds
Let
the same.
me tell you about 1987 Silver Stadium.
Oh, yeah.
On October
you were there.
after. I was there.
Everyone
I was
there. Everyone was there. You could throw a stone in Rochester and meet somebody who was at that show. Everybody somehow was at that show. Miraculous. It's unbelievable. Changed my life. You'll hear.
Best show I was ever at.
Of course. Every song, same one. It's just not for me.
I'm biting my tongue, Mr. Music.
Well, I'm just saying it's not for me. I'm not saying that you can like it. It's just not for me because every song sounds like the same.
All right. If there was something else at the Sphere, I've heard the Sphere is outstanding. I was changing shapes.
I have heard that.
Yeah.
And I've heard rumors that one of my daughter's favorite artists may be coming to the Sphere this summer. And man, I hope that the rumors aren't true because I'm not really ready to take my 20-year-old daughter to Vegas for the first time.
Oh. Yeah, no, I don't know if that's a family destination.
I know that Vegas would say otherwise, that Vegas wants to be known as a family destination. But yeah, that's a whole different sort of sensory overload that she's never experienced in her life. And to be honest with you, being that I haven't been there in 20 years, I don't know that I'm ready to experience that at this point in my life. I might be good.
I think you'd be okay, honestly. Like, if you just stayed on the strip, you didn't veer off, I think it'd be fine.
It would be fine. I'm being dramatic. Last call next, 866-4FAN. St. John Fisher basketball, 15 minutes away. Stay in the sports bar. Danger and Battaglia on the Fan.
You're listening to the...
This in from the Athletic, Danger. Remember this story? Well, it's a developing story, how these baseball uniforms are cheap. How everybody making fun of them.
Everybody hates them.
The MLPPA, the Players Association, is working to see if adjustments can be made to the new uniforms following a firestorm of negative reviews at the outset of spring training. Okay, I'll answer that question. No.
Right. What do they think is going to happen? Do you think they're actually going to get their way?
The player, this is what you're wearing.
Yeah.
Too bad.
I've seen enough to know that they don't look right, but I don't know that I care enough about what these uniforms look like to be like, oh, this is a big deal. It's a big deal for them because I feel like baseball players are the same guys that will take a day off because of a hangnail, right? Like little things become big things for them very quickly.
Big, like you had Chris Sale, I don't like these uniforms, I'm going to destroy them all. Like they take this stuff very seriously. But when we talked to our guy, Jim Riley, last Friday, he's giving us takes here about, the free agency, to giving us takes on the Dodgers and everything else. But when we got to the uniforms, he got upset. Like it really was it's a hot button issue for a lot of baseball fans right now.
Yeah. Not how you want, not what you want to be talking about as you're starting spring training. The uniform shouldn't be the top story, right? We should be talking about hope, optimism, free agency, new signings, new places, new faces. Uniforms that look like knockoffs.
Yeah. Right. That should be, we don't think about them, don't want to talk about them.
Yeah, Manfred, another bang-up job. 2020 is a year. I'm here to 2029. 2024 is a year that we're going to talk about the uniforms forever. I'm here. Yeah. Tomorrow on the show, we will be joined. Man, I hope we have PJ tomorrow. PJ Glasser, Odyssey Sports Betting Insider, host of BetQL Send It In. It's been a couple of weeks since we've talked to PJ. Get some winners. Insider calls are presented, as always, by BetMGM. Go check out all the latest lines today on the BetMGM app. And a future Hall of Famer joining us tomorrow afternoon.
Roy Fitzpatrick, who is still in town, as most of you know, and he's going to the Amherst Hall of Fame on Friday night. Feels a little overdue, but that is going to be a lot of fun. So we'll talk a little Amherst hockey with the future Hall of Famer coming up tomorrow.
Do we claim him as our own? Yes, well, of course we do.
Of course we
because
do.
He is ours. Like he's actually ours.
Played for the Amherst, lives in town.
Yes, he's not like one of these people that we claim as our own, even though they're by association. He is Rochester.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about. I claim Rory McIlroy as a Rochesterian.
Yeah,
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You do, right? Just because he married the girl from...
your in-laws are here. You're here. Yeah. You are one of us.
He is one of us.
You own property here. You're one of us.
Northern Ireland, I believe, claims him before Rochester.
I don't believe that. That is not correct. No.
All right, fair enough. Roy Fitzpatrick joins us tomorrow afternoon, 4:25. That'll be a fun conversation. St. John Fisher basketball next. Empire 8?
Houghton
the opponent.
3-6 matchup.
Stand by for Nick Coble and your play-by-play. Gino will be stopping by as well. That's on the way next on The Fan Rochester. Talk to you again tomorrow at 3.
You're listening to The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.